What if Goku ended up in the One Piece world? Now before you roll your eyes thinking another op crossover, just stick with me for a second. Here's the thing, Goku is stupidly overpowered compared to anyone in One Piece, right? Planet Buster meets island-level fighters, but what if his ki just doesn't work properly there? What if he has to actually learn their power system from scratch? Picture this. Our favorite Saiyan crashes into the Grand Line, gets picked up by the Straw Hats, and suddenly he's not this unstoppable force anymore. He's just a really strong guy trying to figure out Haki while Luffy teaches him what it actually means to fight for others. Oh, and his arrival accidentally wakes up some ancient weapons that could destroy both universes. No big deal. This story's about more than just epic fights. It's Goku learning that strength isn't about being the strongest, it's about who you choose to protect. And trust me, the way it all comes together is absolutely beautiful. If you're ready for something different, hit that like button and let's jump in. The training grounds floated in complete silence, suspended in a pocket of space where time moved differently. Goku wiped sweat from his brow, his orange gi torn in several places from the intensity of his practice. Across from him, Whis observed with that same serene expression he always wore, his staff glowing faintly. Again, Goku, Whis said, tapping his staff against the crystalline floor, you're still thinking too much. Ultra Instinct isn't about conscious thought, it's about letting your body move without the interference of your mind. Goku nodded, dropping back into his fighting stance. He'd been at this for what felt like months now, trying to master the technique that had saved him during the Tournament of Power. The problem was, every time he got close to that perfect state of emptiness, his Saiyan nature kicked in. He wanted to fight, to push harder, to break his limits through sheer willpower. I know, Goku muttered, closing his eyes. It's just, when I stop thinking, I start wanting to punch things really hard. That's precisely the problem, Whis chuckled. Now then, let's try something different. I want you to combine your instant transmission with Ultra Instinct. Move without thinking about where you're going. That sounded like a terrible idea, but Goku had learned not to question Whis' training methods. The angel knew what he was doing, even when it seemed completely insane. Goku placed 2 fingers against his forehead, feeling for key signatures scattered across the universe. There, Vegeta was training on some distant planet, his energy burning like a blue flame. Perfect target. Here goes nothing, Goku whispered, letting his mind go blank. The world around him began to shimmer. His silver hair flickered in and out of existence as Ultra Instinct sign activated. At the same time, the familiar sensation of instant transmission pulled at his consciousness. But something was wrong. Without his mind directing the technique, it felt wild, uncontrolled. Space began to tear. Goku, stop! Whis' voice seemed to come from very far away. Reality split open like fabric, revealing swirling colors that hurt to look at. Goku felt himself being pulled in multiple directions at once, his ki scattering across dimensions he couldn't even comprehend. The last thing he saw was Whis reaching toward him, genuine concern replacing his usual calm demeanor. Then everything went dark. Water, lots of water. That was Goku's first coherent thought as consciousness returned to him. His lungs burned as he struggled toward what he hoped was the surface, salt water stinging his eyes. When his head finally broke through the waves, he gasped and coughed, treading water while trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions. No sign of Whis' training dimension, no familiar key signatures. Even stranger, his own power felt, muffled somehow, like someone had wrapped his ki in thick blankets. That's not good, he said to himself, then immediately had to spit out a mouthful of seawater. A shadow passed overhead. Goku looked up to see a ship, but not like any ship he'd ever seen before. It had a figurehead that looked like a ram and a flag with some kind of skull symbol. Pirates maybe? Did Earth still have pirates? Wait, this didn't feel like Earth at all. Hey, Goku shouted, waving his arms. Down here. I could use some help, the ship began to turn. Good, they'd heard him. As it got closer, Goku could make out people on the deck. A guy in a straw hat was pointing at him excitedly, saying something to his crewmates. A ladder dropped down and strong hands helped pull Goku aboard. The first thing he noticed was how young most of the crew looked. The second thing he noticed was how diverse they were. There was a guy with green hair and 3 swords, a blonde in a suit, a girl with orange hair, someone who looked like a reindeer but was walking on 2 legs and wearing a hat. Thanks, Goku said, wringing water out of his gi. I thought I was gonna be swimming for a while there. The kid in the straw hat, who couldn't be more than 20, was staring at him with obvious fascination. Are you okay? You fell out of the sky, like really high up. I saw you, fell out of the sky. That actually made sense given what had happened with the instant transmission. Yeah, I guess I did. Training accident. Training? The green-haired guy looked skeptical. What kind of training involves falling out of the sky into the middle of the ocean? Before Goku could answer, the reindeer, who was apparently a doctor, based on the medical bag he was carrying, stepped forward. Don't overwhelm him, Zoro. He might have injuries. The reindeer looked up at Goku with big, concerned eyes. Are you hurt anywhere? Okay, talking reindeer doctor. That was new, but Goku had seen weirder things, probably. I'm fine, Goku said, then paused. Actually, now that he thought about it, he didn't feel fine. His ki was still suppressed somehow, and there was a strange weakness in his limbs. Well, maybe not completely fine, I feel. Weaker than usual. That could be from nearly drowning, the orange-haired girl said. She was studying him with sharp eyes like she was trying to figure out what he was worth. I'm Nami. This is our Captain Luffy, she pointed to the Straw Hat Kid. I'm Goku, he replied, then looked around at the rest of the crew. Thanks for pulling me out of the water. I don't think I've ever seen a ship like this before. The blonde guy in the suit stepped forward with a slight bow. I am Sanji, the cook of this crew. You must be hungry after your ordeal. Please allow me to prepare something for you. Food. Now that sounded good. Goku's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly enough to be heard over the ocean waves. Luffy's eyes lit up. You're hungry, Sanji, make lots of food. Our new friend looks like he can eat a lot. New friend? Goku looked confused. You just met me. So, Luffy grinned widely, you seem nice, and anyone who falls out of the sky is probably pretty strong. There was something infectious about the kid's enthusiasm. Despite everything that had happened, Goku found himself smiling back. I guess I am pretty strong. Usually anyway. The Dr. Reindeer, Chopper, someone had called him, was still examining Goku with professional concern. Your body temperature is slightly elevated and your muscle tension is unusual. Are you from around here? That's complicated, Goku said. How exactly did you explain that you were from a completely different universe? I don't think I'm from anywhere around here, actually. Where is here exactly? The crew exchanged glances. It was the woman with black hair, who had been quietly reading a book during the whole rescue, who answered. We're in the Grand Line about 2 days out from Water 7. I'm Robin, by the way. Grand Line, Water 7. Those names meant nothing to Goku. I've never heard of those places, he admitted. What planet is this? Dead silence fell over the ship. Even Luffy stopped bouncing around. Planet, Nami repeated slowly. This is Earth. Are you saying you're not from Earth? Well, I'm from Earth, Goku said. Just maybe not your Earth. See, I was training with my teacher, and there was this accident with space-time, and he paused, noticing their expressions. You guys don't know about other dimensions and stuff, do you? Other dimensions? Robin leaned forward, suddenly very interested. You're claiming to be from another dimension. Not claiming, I am. To prove his point, Goku tried to power up. Usually this would cause his hair to spike up and turn golden, his aura blazing around him. Instead, he managed a faint flickering of energy that felt like trying to start a fire with wet matches. Huh, that's weird. My ki isn't working right. Kai, Chopper tilted his head. What's Kai? How do you explain life energy to people who have never heard of it? Goku scratched his head, trying to think of a way to put it simply. It's like the energy inside all living things. I can usually manipulate it to make myself stronger, faster, fly around, shoot energy blasts, but here it feels all muffled. Energy blasts? Sanji lit a cigarette, looking skeptical. Like devil fruit powers. Devil fruit, more confused stares. Okay, Nami said, holding up her hands. Let's start over. You're telling us you're from another dimension, you can normally fly and shoot energy beams, but your powers don't work right here. Is that correct? Pretty much, yeah, Goku nodded. Also, I've never seen a talking reindeer before, so I'm guessing your world has some pretty different stuff too. I'm not just a reindeer, Chopper protested, though he looked pleased. I ate a devil fruit that let me become human. Devil fruits let you do that? Goku's eyes widened with interest. That's amazing. How do they work? Before anyone could answer, there was a commotion from the ship's figurehead. A small skeleton in a suit was pointing toward the horizon with a bony finger. Ship approaching, he called out in a surprisingly elegant voice. Marine vessel, battleship class, the entire mood of the crew shifted instantly. Luffy's grin turned sharp, Zoro's hand moved to his sword hilts, and Nami was already barking orders about wind direction. Marines? Goku asked. Government Navy, Robin explained quickly. They're not friendly to pirates like us. You're pirates? Goku looked around the crew with new interest. They seemed like good people, but pirates were supposed to be, well, bad, right? The best pirates, Luffy declared proudly. We're gonna find the One Piece and I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Before Goku could ask what the One Piece was, the marine ship came into clear view. It was bigger than the pirate ship, with cannons bristling along its sides and the word Justice painted in large letters on the sail. Straw Hat Luffy, a voice boomed across the water through what sounded like a loudspeaker. By order of the world government, surrender immediately. Not happening, Luffy called back cheerfully. The first cannonball came whistling toward them a second later. Goku's body moved before his mind could catch up. Even with his ki suppressed, his reflexes were still intact. He leaped up, caught the cannonball in midair, and threw it back at the marine ship with enough force to punch a hole clean through their mast. He landed back on deck to find the entire Straw Hat crew staring at him in shock. What? Goku asked. They were shooting at us. You caught a cannonball, Zoro said flatly, and threw it back, Sanji added. With your bare hands, Nami finished. Is that weird? I mean, you guys are pirates, right? Don't you fight the Marines all the time? Not by catching their cannonballs, Luffy laughed delightedly. That was awesome, do it again. More cannonballs were indeed coming their way. Goku caught 2 more, batting them aside like baseballs. The third one he caught and squeezed until it crumpled, the gunpowder spilling harmlessly into the ocean. Okay, he said, turning to Luffy. I'm definitely not in my dimension anymore, but you know what? I think I like it here already. The marine ship was closing in and Goku could see soldiers preparing to board. His ki might not be working properly, but his fighting instincts were as sharp as ever. And for the first time since waking up in the ocean, he felt that familiar Saiyan excitement building in his chest. So, he said to his rescuers, cracking his knuckles, how do you guys usually handle situations like this? Luffy's grin was answer enough. The real adventure was just beginning. The marine ship was burning. That wasn't exactly what Goku had intended, but when you threw cannonballs back with enough force to crack steel hulls, sometimes things caught fire. The soldiers were scrambling to put out the flames while their captain shouted orders through a transponder snail, which was apparently how people communicated long distances in this world. Another thing to add to the growing list of stuff that's different here. Nice work, Luffy laughed, slapping Goku on the back. You sent them running. I didn't mean to set their ship on fire, Goku said, watching the Marines retreat with genuine concern. Are they gonna be okay? They'll be fine, Nami assured him, though she was staring at him with a mixture of admiration and calculation. Marine ships have fire suppression systems, but I've never seen anyone just catch cannonballs like that. It's not that hard, Goku shrugged. Back home, my friends and I used to deflect energy beams that could blow up planets. Cannonballs are pretty slow by comparison. Another one of those uncomfortable silences fell over the group. Goku was starting to recognize the pattern. Blow up planets, Chopper squeaked. Well, yeah, though usually we tried to avoid that. Goku scratched his head. Property damage was always a problem during fights. Cities, mountains, that sort of thing. My wife got really mad about it. Your wife, Sanji perked up with interest. You're married, Chi-Chi, she's intense, really cares about education and keeping our house intact. The thought of Chi-Chi made Goku's chest tight with homesickness. I hope she's not too worried about me disappearing. Robin, who had been quietly observing the entire exchange, closed her book with a soft snap. This dimensional travel theory of yours. Can you describe exactly what happened during your training accident? Leave it to the archaeologist to ask the important questions. Goku found himself liking Robin already. She reminded him of Bulma, always wanting to understand how things worked. I was practicing this technique called Ultra Instinct, Goku began, then paused. How do you explain Ultra Instinct to people who don't know what ki is? It's basically a state where your body moves and fights without you having to think about it. But I was trying to combine it with instant transmission, that's teleportation, and something went wrong. Space kind of tore open. Teleportation is real, Frankie, the cyborg shipwright, had joined the conversation. His eyes were practically glowing with excitement. That's super cool, how's it work, some kind of technology? Not technology, it's a key technique. I lock onto someone's energy signature and Goku stopped again. This would be a lot easier to explain if I could actually show you, but my ki isn't working right here. Show us what you can do, Luffy said immediately. Even if it's not working right, the enthusiasm in the kid's voice was infectious. Goku found himself grinning. Okay, but don't expect much. He moved to the center of the deck, taking a basic fighting stance. Normally, powering up would cause his hair to spike and turn golden, his muscles to bulk up, and a blazing aura to surround his body. Instead, when he tried to access his Super Saiyan transformation, he got a faint golden flicker around his hair that lasted maybe 2 seconds. Weird, he muttered. It's like something's interfering with the energy flow. Still, even his suppressed base form was nothing to sneeze at. When he threw a punch at the air, the displaced wind was strong enough to ruffle everyone's hair. A simple jump carried him 20 feet straight up, and when he moved at what felt like normal speed to him, he seemed to blur from one side of the deck to the other. Incredible, Brooke murmured. Your physical capabilities are extraordinary even without these Kai powers. This is nothing compared to what I can usually do, Goku said, a little embarrassed. Normally I can fly, move faster than light, lift mountains. Faster than light, Nami looked skeptical. That's impossible, not where I come from, Goku demonstrated by moving in a small circle around the mast faster than their eyes could follow. To them, it probably looked like he'd teleported. See, though that should have been way faster. Zoro had been silent during the demonstration, but now he stepped forward with his hand on his sword hilt. Want to spar? Zoro, Nami warned. He just threw cannonballs around like they were baseballs. Exactly, Zoro's grin was sharp. When's the next time I'll get to fight someone from another dimension? Goku's own grin matched it. Finally, someone who understood. I'd love to, but I should probably warn you, I'm a lot stronger than I look. So am I, the two men squared off while the rest of the crew cleared some space. Goku was curious to see what this three-sword style was about, and Zoro was clearly eager to test himself against someone with completely alien abilities. Don't kill each other, Nami said resignedly. And try not to damage the ship. Zoro drew one sword, not all three, Goku noted with interest. I'll start easy. Same here, Goku replied, settling into a defensive stance. Zoro moved fast, faster than any normal human could, but still within the range of what Goku was used to. His sword work was precise, economical, each strike aimed at a vital point. But Goku had been fighting sword users since he was 12 years old. He dodged the blade by inches, letting it pass harmlessly by. Not bad, Zoro said, pressing the attack. But you're just dodging. I don't want to hurt you, Goku replied, weaving between strikes. Your technique is really good, but Zoro's second sword appeared in his hand mid-swing, nearly catching Goku off guard. The Saiyan had to actually put some effort into avoiding that one. Now we're talking, Goku laughed, starting to counterattack with quick jabs and kicks that Zoro barely managed to block. The third sword went between Zoro's teeth, and suddenly the swordsman's entire fighting style changed. The three blades moved in perfect coordination, creating a whirlwind of steel that would have shredded any normal opponent. Goku was having the time of his life. This is amazing, he called out, ducking under a horizontal slash while sweeping at Zoro's legs. I've never seen anyone fight with three swords before, and I've never fought anyone who could keep up without a weapon, Zoro replied through gritted teeth, literally, since one of his swords was in his mouth. They broke apart, both breathing hard but grinning widely. Okay, Zoro said, resheathing his swords, you're definitely stronger than you look. You too, that three-sword thing is really cool. How do you even coordinate all that? Lots of practice. Zoro looked thoughtful. Your fighting style is weird though, it's like you're used to fighting people who can fly. That's because I am. Goku rubbed the back of his neck. Most of my friends back home can fly, and teleport, and shoot energy beams. It makes for some pretty crazy fights. Sounds awesome, Luffy said, eyes shining. I want to fight someone who can shoot energy beams. Maybe once I figure out what's wrong with my ki, Goku promised. So far all I can manage are the basic physical techniques. That's still pretty impressive, Robin said. Your body seems to operate on different principles than ours. Chopper, what did you find during your examination? The reindeer doctor pulled out a small notebook. His muscle density is at least 3 times normal human standard. His bone structure is reinforced in ways I've never seen. His metabolism is incredibly fast. I think he burns calories at roughly 10 times the normal rate. And there's some kind of energy circulating through his body that I can't identify. That's key, Goku explained. Everyone has it where I come from, but most people can't use it consciously. I've been training to control mine since I was a kid. And this key allows you to fly and shoot energy? Robin asked. Among other things, yeah. I can sense other people's life force, increase my strength and speed, even heal faster from injuries. Goku frowned. But here, it feels like there's some kind of interference. Like trying to tune a radio with a lot of static. Maybe it's because this world has different energy, Luffy suggested. Like how devil fruits work differently than normal stuff. Devil fruits, Goku repeated. You guys keep mentioning those. What are they exactly? Luffy stretched his arm out to an impossible length, then snapped it back like rubber. Devil fruits give you special powers. I ate the gum-gum fruit, so now I'm made of rubber. You're made of rubber? Goku poked Luffy's arm experimentally. It definitely had that bouncy quality. That's incredible. How does that work? Nobody really knows, Nami admitted. Devil fruits just change your body somehow. There are 3 types: Paramecia like Luffy's, Zoan like Chopper's that let you transform into animals, and Logia that turn you into natural elements. Natural elements, like fire, ice, lightning, that sort of thing, Sanji explained. Logia users can become intangible and control their element. Goku's eyes lit up. So there are people here who can control lightning? That's awesome. I fought a guy once who could do that, but he wasn't actually made of lightning. The world is full of devil fruit users, Robin said. Each fruit is unique and only works for one person at a time. When the user dies, the fruit reappears somewhere in the world. That's an interesting system. Goku was genuinely fascinated. Where I come from, most special abilities come from training or natural talent, though we have these things called Dragon Balls that can grant wishes. Wishes, Nami's eyes turned into berry signs. Like wishing for treasure, among other things, I've used them to bring people back to life mostly. Another uncomfortable silence. Bring people back to life, Chopper whispered. It's not that uncommon where I'm from, Goku said quickly. I've been dead twice myself. It's really not as bad as it sounds. You've been dead twice. Brook, the skeleton musician, spoke up with obvious interest. How fascinating. I myself have experienced death thanks to my devil fruit. Really? What's that like? As the sun began to set, the conversation continued. Sanji prepared an enormous feast, which Goku attacked with an appetite that impressed even Luffy. Frankie showed him around the ship's mechanics, marveling at how Goku could intuitively understand the engineering despite never seeing anything like it before. Robin shared some of her books on ancient history, hoping to find references to interdimensional travel. But it was during the quiet moment after dinner, when Goku was sitting on the figurehead looking up at unfamiliar stars, that Luffy came to find him. Hey, the rubber man said, plopping down next to him. You okay? Just thinking, Goku replied. These constellations are all wrong, different stars, different moon. It really hits home that I'm not in my universe anymore. Do you want to go back? Goku considered the question seriously. I miss my family, my friends, but honestly, this place is pretty amazing. I've learned more about different kinds of power in one day here than I did in months back home. What's it like, your world? Different. Simpler in some ways, more complicated in others. Goku pulled his knees up to his chest. There aren't really pirates or marines or governments like you have here, just people with different levels of power, and sometimes they fight. But it's usually pretty straightforward, good guys versus bad guys, save the earth, that sort of thing. Sounds boring, Luffy said with a grin. It can be, but then again, I never had friends like you guys before either. Goku looked sideways at his new captain. What's your deal anyway? You want to be king of the pirates, but you're not like any pirates I ever heard of. You're too nice. Luffy's expression grew serious, or as serious as Luffy ever got. Being Pirate King means being the freest person on the seas. It means being able to go anywhere, do anything, protect the people you care about. Pirates aren't about being mean or stealing stuff. They're about freedom. Freedom, Goku repeated thoughtfully. What about you? What do you want? I want to get stronger, Goku answered automatically, then paused. But I also want to find a way home, and maybe help you guys out while I'm here. You saved my life after all. You want to join my crew? The question hung in the air between them. Goku found himself seriously considering it. These people had welcomed him without question, fed him, explained their world to him, even offered to help find a way home. And that fight with Zoro had been the most fun he'd had in weeks. I don't know if I can permanently join, Goku said slowly. I've got responsibilities back home, but maybe, temporarily, until I figure out how to get back. Luffy's grin could have powered a small city. Awesome. Welcome to the Straw Hat Pirates. Just like that. Just like that. You're a good guy, you're strong, and you make everything more fun. That's all I need to know. As if summoned by their captain's excitement, the rest of the crew gathered around the figurehead. Nami was holding a newspaper and looking troubled. We've got a problem, she announced. The Marines we fought today, they reported back to headquarters. Look at this. She held up the paper. On the front page was a blurry photo of Goku catching a cannonball with a headline that read, Mysterious warrior joins Straw Hat Pirates, bounty increased. They put a bounty on me already? Goku asked, squinting at the fuzzy image. 50 million berries, Nami said grimly. That's higher than some of our crew started with. They're taking you seriously. Is that bad? It means they're going to send stronger people after us, Robin explained. The world government doesn't like unknowns, especially powerful ones. Goku felt that familiar tingle of anticipation. Stronger opponents, huh? You're excited about this, aren't you? Zoro observed with amusement. Kind of, yeah. I mean, if they're sending their best people, that means I'll get to see what the really strong fighters in this world can do, Luffy laughed. I knew I liked you. Don't worry about bounties and marines and stuff. We'll figure it out as we go. Speaking of figuring things out, Robin interjected, I've been researching your dimensional travel problem. There are some references in ancient texts to something called the Void Century that might be relevant. People appearing from nowhere, strange technologies, that sort of thing. Really? Goku perked up with interest. It's a long shot, but there might be answers on certain islands. Places where the ancient history is preserved. Robin's expression was thoughtful. Though accessing that information won't be easy, the world government has spent 800 years trying to erase those records. Why would they do that? That's the question, isn't it? Robin smiled mysteriously. But we have some time to research. Our next stop is Water 7 for ship repairs and supplies. Water 7, Goku repeated. Is that the name of the island? One of the greatest cities in the world, Frankie said proudly. Best shipwrights anywhere, and the water elevators are super amazing. Water elevators. You'll see, Nami promised. But first, we should all get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be busy. As the crew began to disperse, heading for their quarters, Goku remained on the figurehead looking up at the alien stars. For the first time since arriving in this strange new world, he felt genuinely optimistic. He had new friends, the promise of strong opponents, and mysteries to unravel. Sure, he missed home. But maybe, just maybe, this unplanned adventure was exactly what he needed. The Thousand Sunnies sailed through the night toward Water 7, carrying its newest crew member toward whatever destiny awaited them in this vast, strange world of pirates and devil fruits and dreams of freedom. And in the distance, barely visible on the horizon, a marine battleship followed at a safe distance, its captain reporting to headquarters about the mysterious warrior who had fallen from the sky. The world government was very interested in Goku indeed. Water 7 was unlike anything Goku had ever seen. The city rose up from the ocean in terraced levels, with water elevators carrying ships up and down between the different tiers like some kind of massive aquatic parking garage. Buildings were built right into the waterways, and people traveled around on strange creatures that looked like a cross between a fish and a bull. Those are Yagara bulls, Nami explained as they approached the docking area. They're how people get around the city. The whole place is built on water channels. It's incredible, Goku said, leaning over the ship's railing to get a better look. How do the buildings not fall down? Superior engineering, Frankie declared proudly. Water 7 has the best shipwrights in the world. This is where the Thousand Sunny was built. As they made their way through the city's waterways, Goku couldn't help but stare at everything. The architecture was completely different from anything he'd seen on Earth, or his Earth, anyway. People wore clothes that looked vaguely European but with strange flourishes, and there were vendors selling fruits he didn't recognize alongside what appeared to be normal fish. Stick close, Luffy warned him. Water 7 can be confusing if you're not used to it, easy to get lost in all the channels. They docked at a busy pier, and immediately Goku could sense something was off. His key perception might have been muffled, but his instincts were still sharp. Too many people were paying attention to their ship, trying too hard to look casual while obviously watching them. We're being watched, he said quietly to Luffy. Yeah, I figured. Luffy seemed completely unconcerned. Happens a lot, our bounties make us pretty famous. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Depends on who's doing the watching. As if to answer his question, a commotion broke out near the harbor entrance. People were scattering, shouting about marines, and Goku could see ships with the familiar Justice sails approaching fast. That's not good, Nami muttered, checking her log pose. We just got here and they're already on us. How many ships? Zoro asked, hand moving instinctively to his swords. 3, Robin reported from her perch on the mast. Battleship class flying Vice Admiral flags. Vice Admiral? Goku looked confused. Higher rank than the guys we fought yesterday, Sanji explained, lighting a cigarette. Much higher. Vice Admirals are serious business. The lead marine ship pulled up to the pier with military precision. The gangplank dropped, and out stepped a man who immediately caught Goku's attention. He was huge, probably close to 10 feet tall, with white hair and an enormous cigar. But more importantly, his entire lower body seemed to be made of white smoke. Logia, Chopper whispered nervously. Smoker, Luffy said with considerably less enthusiasm than usual. Great. Straw Hat, the smoke man smoker bellowed across the water. You're under arrest. Not today, Luffy called back cheerfully. We just got here. Smoker's response was to launch himself through the air using jets of smoke, his lower body dissolving into vapor while his upper half remained solid. He was heading straight for their ship with what looked like a weapon made of some kind of sea stone. Goku moved without thinking. He intercepted Smoker in midair, grabbing the Marine's weapon before it could connect with Luffy. The contact sent a strange shock through his system, not painful exactly, but deeply unpleasant. Like someone had wrapped his ki in wet blankets and then set it on fire. What the hell? Smoker snarled, swinging his free fist at Goku's head. Goku ducked the punch and landed hard on the pier, still holding Smoker's weapon. The Marine reformed his smoke body and glared down at him. Who are you supposed to be? I'm Goku, he replied politely. Nice to meet you. That smoke thing is really cool. Smoker stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You just complimented my devil fruit powers. Should I not have? It really is impressive. I've never seen anyone turn into smoke before. You're with the Straw Hats, Smoker said, as if that explained everything. Yeah, they're great. Really friendly people. They pulled me out of the ocean yesterday. The white-haired Marine looked like he was having trouble processing this conversation. Do you have any idea who you're defending? Pirates, Goku said. But they're good pirates. They haven't hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. There's no such thing as good pirates. Really, because Luffy told me being a pirate is about freedom, and that sounds pretty good to me. Smoker's expression darkened. Freedom to rob, murder, and terrorize innocent people. Huh, Goku considered this. That doesn't sound like Luffy at all. Are you sure we're talking about the same pirates? Before Smoker could answer, more Marines were pouring onto the pier. These ones looked more normal, no smoke powers, but they moved with the discipline of serious soldiers. Goku found himself surrounded. Stand down, one of them shouted. You're outnumbered, am I? Goku looked around at the 30 or so Marines pointing rifles at him. I guess I am, that's new. Back on the ship, he could see the Straw Hats preparing for a fight. Luffy was cracking his knuckles, Zoro had drawn one sword, and Sanji was stubbing out his cigarette with the expression of a man about to get very violent. Last chance, Smoker warned. Surrender now and maybe you'll live to see a trial. Sorry, Goku said, genuinely apologetic, but my friends need me, and besides, I'm curious about something. Curious about what? How strong are Vice Admirals exactly? Smoker's answer was to turn his entire body into smoke and engulf Goku in a choking cloud. The strange weakness Goku had felt from touching the weapon intensified, making his limbs feel heavy and his ki even more suppressed than before. But Saiyan physiology had some advantages. Goku could hold his breath for a really long time. He burst out of the smoke cloud with a punch that caught Smoker completely off guard. The Marine reformed a few feet away, looking surprised. Impossible, Smoker muttered. How did you hit me? I was intangible. Were you? Goku looked genuinely puzzled. It felt like hitting a person to me. The Marines opened fire. Goku moved not at his full speed. He was still getting used to his reduced capabilities, but fast enough that the bullets seemed to crawl through the air. He weaved between them, gently disarming soldiers with precise strikes that left them conscious but unable to fight. He's too fast, one of them shouted. Not really, Goku called back. You guys are just kind of slow. Smoker came at him again, this time keeping his solid form and relying on pure combat skill. The Marine was good, very good. His jit moved with practiced precision, and he clearly had years of experience fighting devil fruit users and other dangerous opponents. But Goku had been fighting since he was 12, against opponents who could destroy planets. Even weakened, even with his ki suppressed, muscle memory and instinct carried him through. He caught Smoker's jit again, and this time he was ready for the strange, draining sensation. It was like the weapon was specifically designed to weaken people with special abilities. What is this thing made of? Goku asked, examining the weapon while dodging Smoker's increasingly frustrated attacks. Sea stone, Smoker panted. It neutralizes devil fruit powers, should work on whatever freaky ability you're using too. Huh, it definitely feels weird. Goku spun the jit in his hand experimentally. But I'm not using a devil fruit power, I'm just... Me? He handed the weapon back to Smoker, who accepted it with obvious confusion. You gave it back. It's yours, right? I was just curious about how it worked. The fighting had spread to the ship now. Goku could see Luffy stretching his arms to impossible lengths while battling more Marines, Zoro cutting through rifles with casual efficiency, and Sanji literally kicking cannonballs out of the air. But what caught his attention was a new sensation, something he'd never felt before. It was like his key sense, but different, sharper, more focused. Without thinking about it, he ducked. Smoker's jit whistled over his head. "How did you?" Smoker began. "I don't know," Goku admitted. "I just knew you were going to attack, like I could feel your intention." From the ship, Zoro's voice carried over the battle noise. "That's observation Haki, you idiot." "Haki?" Goku looked interested. "What's Haki?" Smoker took advantage of his distraction to land a solid hit with the sea stone weapon. The impact sent that strange weakness flooding through Goku's system again, but also sparked something else. A different kind of energy, not Ki, but similar. Like a cousin of Ki that had grown up in a different neighborhood. "Interesting," Goku said, rubbing his side where the jit had connected. "Do that again." "Do what again?" "Hit me with that sea stone thing. I think it's helping me figure something out." Smoker stared at him. "You want me to hit you?" "Yeah, I think your weapon is helping me understand this Haki thing." "You're insane." "I get that a lot." The battle might have continued, but at that moment, a new voice cut across the pier with the authority of absolute command. "That's enough." Everyone, Marines and pirates alike, turned to look at the speaker. She was a tall woman with long black hair, wearing a marine coat, but with an aura of power that made even Smoker straighten to attention. "Vice Admiral Tsuru," Smoker said respectfully. The woman studied the scene with sharp, intelligent eyes. Her gaze lingered on Goku for a long moment. "You must be the interdimensional visitor our intelligence reports mentioned," she said calmly. "Word travels fast," Goku replied. "Are you here to fight too?" "That depends. Are you here to cause trouble?" Goku considered the question seriously. "I don't think so. I just want to learn about this world and maybe find a way home, though I wouldn't mind some good fights along the way." Tsuru smiled slightly. "Honest, at least." "Smoker, stand down." "But Vice Admiral, that's an order." Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "This situation requires a different approach." She walked closer to Goku, seemingly unconcerned about the fact that he'd just defeated 30 Marines and fought a Logia user to a standstill. "I have a proposition for you," she said. "Our intelligence suggests you possess abilities unlike anything we've encountered. The world government would be very interested in understanding how your powers work. You want to study me, in exchange for information about dimensional travel and possible ways to return to your world." It was tempting. Really tempting, but Goku glanced back at the Straw Hats who were watching the exchange with obvious tension. "Thanks for the offer," he said politely, "but I think I'll stick with my friends. They're teaching me about Haki and devil fruits and stuff, plus Sanji's cooking is really good." Tsuru's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes suggested she'd expected this answer. "Very well. But understand, the world government's interest in you will not simply disappear. We will be watching." "That's okay, I don't really have anything to hide." "Perhaps not, but your friends do." Her gaze shifted to the Straw Hats. "Be careful who you trust, interdimensional visitor. This world is more complex than it appears." With that ominous warning, she signaled to her forces. The Marines began an orderly retreat, leaving Goku standing on the pier with more questions than answers. "Well," Luffy said, bouncing over with his usual grin. "That was fun. Did you figure out that Haki thing?" "I think so," Goku said slowly. "It's like Ki, but it comes from willpower instead of life energy. And there are different types." "3 main types," Zoro confirmed. "Observation Haki lets you sense attacks and emotions. Armament Haki lets you hit harder and defend better. Conqueror's Haki." "Well, that's special. Can you teach me?" "We can try, but Haki training is different for everyone. It depends on your personality, your fighting style, your dreams." "My dreams?" Goku thought about that. Back home, his dream had always been simple: get stronger, fight strong opponents, protect his friends and family. Here, maybe it was more complicated. As they made their way back to the ship, Goku noticed people watching them from windows and doorways. Not with fear exactly, but with a kind of cautious respect. Word of the fight was already spreading. "Is it always like this?" he asked Robin as they prepared to leave the pier. "Being a pirate means living in the spotlight," she replied. "Every action has consequences. Every choice creates ripples." That evening, anchored in a quiet canal away from the main harbor, the crew gathered on deck for dinner and training. Zoro had agreed to give Goku a crash course in basic Haki, while Luffy offered to demonstrate the more advanced techniques. "Close your eyes," Zoro instructed. "Observation Haki is about feeling, not seeing. Try to sense my presence." Goku closed his eyes and reached out with his key sense, but instead of the familiar feeling of life energy, he felt something else. Intention, emotion, the sharp focus of a swordsman preparing to strike. "I can feel you," he said, eyes still closed. "You're about to attack from the left." Zoro's wooden practice sword whistled through the air. Goku moved without thinking, his body responding to the sensation of incoming danger. Good, Zoro said approvingly. You've got natural talent for it. Now try armament haki. It's about projecting your will through your body. This was harder. Ki was about drawing energy from within, but armament haki seemed to be about coating yourself with your own determination. Goku tried to remember that moment during the fight with Smoker when the sea stone had sparked something new in his system. His right fist turned black. Whoa, Luffy exclaimed. You got it on the first try. That took me forever to learn. The black coating felt strange, not like Ki, but somehow familiar anyway, like a different way of expressing the same basic concept. This is incredible, Goku said, examining his darkened fist. It's like my willpower has weight. Exactly, Zoro nodded. Now you're starting to understand. Haki isn't about having power, it's about projecting your spirit into the world. As the training session continued, Goku found himself adapting to this new energy system with surprising speed. His Saiyan physiology, designed for constant adaptation and growth, was learning to work with Haki the same way it had learned to work with Ki. By the end of the evening, he could maintain observation Haki for several minutes at a time, and his armament Haki was strong enough to leave dents in steel. You're a natural, Sanji said, offering him a late-night snack. Most people train for years to get that good. I've had good teachers, Goku replied. Plus, I think my Ki training helps. They're not the same thing, but they're related somehow. Kai and Haki working together, Robin mused. That's an interesting concept. I wonder what would happen if you tried to combine them. Let's find out. Not on my ship, Nami shouted from across the deck. We just got the repairs finished. But as Goku settled in for the night, he couldn't help but experiment a little. Just small tests, trying to channel Ki through his Haki-coated hands, seeing if he could sense both life energy and intention at the same time. The results were promising. Outside, in the shadows of Water 7's towering buildings, figures in dark suits watched the Thousand Sunny through telescopes and Den Mushi. They took careful notes of everything they observed, paying special attention to the alien warriors' rapid adaptation to their world's power systems. In a secure facility somewhere in the city, those notes were compiled into a report marked Priority 1 and sent via encrypted snail to the highest levels of the world government. The report's conclusion was simple. Subject represents unprecedented threat if allowed to continue development. Recommend immediate containment or elimination. But Goku, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around him, dreamed of new techniques and stronger opponents, while the Thousand Sunny rocked gently in the moonlit waters of the world's greatest shipbuilding city. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new mysteries, and new opportunities to grow stronger. He couldn't wait. The attack came at dawn. Goku was up early, practicing his newfound Haki techniques on the ship's deck while the rest of the crew slept. He'd managed to maintain observation Haki for nearly an hour straight, and his armament coating was getting stronger by the day. More importantly, he was starting to feel his Ki responding differently, not stronger exactly, but more integrated with this world's energy systems. That's when he sensed them coming. 6 presences moving fast across the water toward the Thousand Sunny. Their intentions felt different from regular Marines, colder, more focused, professional. Guys, Goku called quietly toward the sleeping quarters. We've got company. Zoro emerged first, swords already in hand. The swordsman's observation Haki was much more refined than Goku's, and his expression immediately turned grim. CP0, he said simply. CP what now? Cypher Paul, government assassins. Luffy's voice was unusually serious as he joined them on deck, the strongest ones. Before Goku could ask what that meant, the first attacker appeared on the ship's railing. He was tall, thin, and wore a white suit with a mask that completely covered his face. When he moved, it was with the fluid grace of someone who had killed many people. Target acquired, the man said in a voice devoid of emotion. Interdimensional subject will come with us for scientific evaluation. Scientific evaluation? Goku blinked. That doesn't sound fun. Resistance is futile. You will be sedated and transported to... Goku's fist caught the assassin in the chest before he could finish the sentence. The man flew backward off the ship, crashing into a distant building with enough force to bring down half the wall. Sorry, Goku called after him, but I really don't like needles. The other 5 CP0 agents materialized on deck simultaneously, moving with coordinated precision. These weren't like the Marines from yesterday. They were fast, skilled, and completely silent as they attacked. Goku found himself genuinely challenged for the first time since arriving in this world. The first agent came at him with what looked like a finger gun technique, firing compressed air bullets that hit harder than actual gunfire. Goku dodged, but barely. His suppressed reflexes weren't quite keeping up with their speed. The second agent appeared behind him, leg already extended in a devastating kick enhanced with armament Haki. Goku twisted away, feeling the wind from the attack ruffle his hair. "Okay," he said, settling into a proper fighting stance. "You guys are actually pretty good." His own armament Haki flared to life, coating his arms in the familiar black sheen, but this time something else happened. His ki, suppressed but not gone, began flowing through the Haki coating like water through a pipe. The result was interesting. When the third agent attacked with razor-sharp finger strikes, Goku blocked with his Haki-coated forearm. But instead of just deflecting the attack, his hybrid defense actually absorbed the kinetic energy and redirected it back at his opponent. The agent stumbled, caught off guard by having his own force turned against him. "Whoa," Goku said, staring at his hands. "That's new." The CP0 agents regrouped, clearly reassessing their approach. The one who seemed to be their leader spoke into a small transponder snail. "Subject displays adaptive abilities beyond initial reports, requesting backup and specialized containment equipment." Containment equipment? Luffy had joined the fight now, his rubber arms stretching out to grab two agents simultaneously. "What kind of backup?" His answer came in the form of an enormous shadow falling over the ship. Goku looked up to see what appeared to be a floating government facility, not a ship, but an actual building suspended in midair by some kind of technology he didn't recognize. "Vegapunk's mobile laboratory," Robin said grimly as she emerged from below deck. "They're serious about capturing you." A new voice boomed down from the floating facility, amplified by loudspeakers. "Attention, interdimensional subject. You are surrounded by marine battleships and CP0 operatives. Surrender immediately for painless scientific evaluation, or we will be forced to use more aggressive methods." Goku looked around. Sure enough, marine ships were emerging from behind the city's water elevators, surrounding their position. But more concerning were the strange devices being lowered from the floating lab, cylinders that hummed with some kind of energy. "What are those things?" he asked. "Sea stone nets," Nami said, her face pale. "They're designed to capture devil fruit users. If those things touch you, they'll suppress whatever's left of your abilities," Chopper finished. "You'll be helpless." The first net fired, expanding in midair to create a mesh large enough to engulf the entire ship. Goku moved without thinking, leaping up to intercept it with his bare hands. The moment he touched the sea stone mesh, that familiar draining sensation hit him like a physical blow. His ki didn't just feel suppressed, it felt like it was being actively drained away. His Haki flickered and died. But his Saiyan physiology had one advantage the world government hadn't counted on: the ability to adapt to almost anything. As the sea stone's energy-draining effect hit him, Goku's body began analyzing it, understanding it, finding ways to work around it. Instead of fighting the suppression, he began to flow with it, using the forced limitation to develop new techniques. He grabbed the net with both hands and began spinning, turning himself into a living centrifuge. The sea stone mesh, designed to capture and hold, became a weapon in his hands as he hurled it back at the floating laboratory. "Impossible," the voice from the loudspeaker said. "Sea stone should neutralize all supernatural abilities." "Maybe," Goku called back, landing on the ship's deck with a grin, "but I'm not supernatural, I'm just really stubborn." More nets fired. This time, Goku was ready for them. He caught each one, his body adapting more quickly to the draining sensation with each exposure. By the fourth net, he was barely affected at all. The CP0 agents regrouped for another assault, but now they were facing a different opponent. Goku's ki might still be suppressed, but his understanding of how it interacted with this world's energy systems was growing by the minute. When the lead agent came at him with a technique that looked like it could punch through steel, Goku didn't just block. He absorbed the attack's energy into his own Haki coating and redirected it as a shockwave that sent all 5 remaining agents flying. "This is impossible," one of them muttered as they picked themselves up. "His power levels are increasing during combat." "Yeah," Goku said cheerfully, "that's kind of my thing. The stronger the opponent, the stronger I get. It's a Saiyan trait." The floating laboratory was preparing something new, a massive device that looked like a cannon, but instead of firing projectiles, it was generating some kind of energy field. "That's not good," Robin observed. "That appears to be a Pacifista modification, designed specifically for capture rather than destruction." The energy beam fired, and Goku found himself engulfed in a field that felt like liquid sea stone. His movements slowed to a crawl, and even his enhanced adaptation abilities couldn't keep up with the suppression. That's when Luffy's voice cut through the energy field like a blade. "Nobody messes with my crew." Gear 4th activated with a sound like thunder. Luffy's body inflated into his Boundman form, and his Conqueror's Haki exploded outward with enough force to crack windows throughout Water 7. The energy field wavered, and in that moment of weakness, Goku felt something new click into place. Not just the combination of ki and Haki, but something deeper. The understanding that power wasn't just about personal strength, it was about the bonds you formed with others. His hair flickered silver for just an instant. Ultra Instinct Sign, adapted to work with this world's energy systems, he moved. The CP0 agents, the marine battleships, the floating laboratory, none of them could track his movement as he bounced between targets like a silver blur. Not attacking to kill, but systematically dismantling their ability to continue the fight. Sea stone weapons were crushed. Ship engines were disabled with surgical precision. The floating laboratory's propulsion systems were knocked offline, sending it into a controlled crash into the harbor. When Goku finally stopped moving, he was standing on the harbor pier, surrounded by dozens of unconscious Marines and disabled equipment. The CP0 agents were tied up with their own nets, and the floating laboratory was half submerged but intact. "Well," he said, slightly out of breath, "that was a good workout." From the floating wreckage, a new figure emerged. She was small, wearing a white coat over a standard Marine uniform, with short purple hair and glasses that reflected the morning light. But her presence felt different, more dangerous than any of the agents or soldiers. "Fascinating," she said, pulling out a notepad and scribbling furiously. "Adaptive physiology, energy absorption and redirection, instantaneous technique development. You're even more interesting than Dr. Vegapunk predicted." "Dr. Vegapunk?" Goku tilted his head. "Is that who you work for?" "I am Dr. Caesar Clown, chief researcher for Project Interdimensional Analysis." Her smile was cold and calculating. "And you, my dear subject, are going to help us understand so much about the nature of reality itself." "Sorry," Goku said politely, "but I'm not really interested in being studied. No offense." "Oh, but you don't have a choice." Dr. Caesar pulled out a small device that looked like a perfume bottle. "This contains a concentrated extract of my Gasu Gasu no Mi abilities. One breath, and you'll be unconscious for hours." She squeezed the device, releasing a cloud of purple gas. Goku held his breath and moved, but the gas expanded faster than he could retreat. Within seconds, he was engulfed in the toxic cloud. "Gotcha," Dr. Caesar smirked. Her expression changed when Goku emerged from the gas cloud completely unaffected. "That was pretty nasty stuff," he said, waving a hand to disperse the remaining gas. "But I've been exposed to way worse. One time I fought in space without breathing for like 20 minutes. Impossible, my gas affects everyone." "Maybe everyone from this world," Goku agreed. "But I'm not from this world, remember?" Dr. Caesar's confident expression cracked. This wasn't in any of our projections." "Yeah, that seems to be happening a lot lately." Goku walked closer, ignoring the way she backed away in obvious fear. "Look, I get that you're curious about me. I'm curious about this place too, but maybe we could just talk, instead of all the kidnapping and experimenting." "Talk?" Dr. Caesar seemed genuinely confused by the concept. "Sure. You could tell me about how devil fruits work, and I could tell you about ki and other dimensions. Everybody wins, nobody gets hurt." For a moment, it seemed like she might actually consider it. Then her expression hardened again. "The world government doesn't negotiate with pirates," she said coldly. "And make no mistake, your association with the Straw Hats makes you a pirate." "I'm okay with that," Goku said with a shrug. "Pirates seem pretty cool so far." Dr. Caesar's response was to pull out another device, this one definitely a weapon. It looked like a cannon that had been miniaturized and fitted with tubes full of different colored gases. "If I can't capture you," she snarled, "then I'll settle for dissecting your corpse." The weapon fired, releasing a stream of gas that ate through the pier's stone surface like acid. Goku dodged, but the gas cloud followed him, expanding and shifting like it was alive. "This is getting annoying," he muttered, then had an idea. Instead of running from the gas, he began moving in a tight circle, using his speed to create a whirlwind that contained the toxic cloud. Faster and faster, until the entire mass of gas was trapped in a miniature tornado. Then he launched the whole thing straight up into the air, where it dispersed harmlessly in the upper atmosphere. Dr. Caesar stared at him with something approaching awe. You turned my devil fruit power against itself." "Sorry about that, but you were trying to kill me." This is impossible. None of our models predicted this level of adaptive ability. Maybe you need better models, Goku suggested helpfully. Before Dr. Caesar could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps made them both turn. A new figure was walking down the pier, a man in a Marine Admiral's coat, but without the typical insignia. He was young for such a high rank, with black hair and a face that seemed to be permanently locked in a cold, calculating expression. Dr. Caesar, the man said calmly, your mission was to capture the subject, not engage in combat. Admiral Candidate Onigumo, Dr. Caesar said nervously. The subject proved more resistant to containment than anticipated. I can see that. The Admiral Candidate's gaze shifted to Goku, and there was something in his eyes that made the Saiyan's instincts scream danger. Interesting. So you're the interdimensional anomaly that has the 5 elders so concerned. The 5 what now? The world government's highest authority. They're very interested in your unique abilities. Onigumo's hand moved to what looked like a sword hilt at his side. Particularly your potential as a weapon. I'm not a weapon, Goku said firmly. I'm just a guy who likes to fight. Everyone is a weapon if you know how to use them properly. Onigumo drew his sword, and immediately Goku could sense something wrong about it. The blade seemed to absorb light and the air around it felt empty somehow. Sea Stone Sword, Robin's voice called from the Thousand Sunny, which had moved closer to the pier. Enhanced with some kind of energy-draining technology. Indeed, Onigumo said, settling into a combat stance. Specifically designed to counter your abilities. Let's see how well you adapt when your power source is being constantly drained. He moved faster than any of the previous opponents, his sea stone blade cutting through the air toward Goku's neck. The Saiyan blocked with his armament Haki, but the moment the blade made contact, he felt his energy being actively siphoned away. Interesting reaction time, Onigumo observed, pressing his attack. But you're already weakening. It was true. Each contact with the blade made Goku's ki feel more distant, his Haki more difficult to maintain. But instead of panicking, he found himself getting excited. You know what? He said, grinning even as he was forced to give ground. This is the first real challenge I've had since I got here. You're enjoying this? Onigumo seemed genuinely surprised. Are you kidding? You guys have been trying to capture me all morning with the same basic approach. But you actually found a way to counter my abilities. That's amazing. Onigumo's perfectly controlled expression cracked slightly. You're happy that I'm winning. I'm happy that you're making me work for it. Goku laughed, ducking under a slice that would have taken his head off. This is what fighting should be like, and as he said it, something clicked. The constant energy drain from the sea stone blade wasn't just suppressing his power, it was forcing him to be more efficient with it. More precise, more creative. His Haki coding changed, becoming less about raw power and more about perfect technique. His ki, instead of flowing in the broad streams he was used to, began moving in precisely controlled channels that minimized waste. Impossible, Onigumo breathed as Goku's movements became more fluid despite the energy drain. The blade should be making you weaker. It is, Goku agreed. But that just means I have to get better instead of stronger. He caught Onigumo's next attack with his bare hand, his perfectly controlled Haki coding allowing him to grab the sea stone blade without being overwhelmed by its draining effect. Thank you, he said sincerely. This has been really educational. Then he broke the sword, not with brute force, but with a precise application of technique that found the weapon's structural weak point and exploited it. The sea stone blade shattered like glass, leaving Onigumo holding a useless hilt. My turn, Goku said cheerfully. The fight that followed was brief and decisive. Without his energy-draining weapon, Onigumo was still dangerous, Admiral Candidate level dangerous. But he was facing an opponent who had just learned to be more efficient with power that was already beyond his ability to counter. When it was over, Onigumo was unconscious on the pier. Dr. Caesar had fled in a small escape pod, and half the Marine force was either disabled or in full retreat. Well, Luffy said, hopping down from the ship to join Goku on the pier. That was fun. Did you learn any new techniques? A few, Goku said, examining his hands. The combination of ki and Haki felt more natural now, less like two separate power systems and more like one integrated whole. I think I'm starting to understand how this world's energy works. Good, Zoro said grimly, because after this morning, we're going to have a lot more enemies coming after us. As if to emphasize his point, Den Den Mushi throughout Water 7 began ringing simultaneously as news of the battle spread. The world government's failed capture attempt was already becoming legend, and Goku's bounty was about to increase dramatically. But for now, As the Thousand Sunny sailed away from Water 7 toward their next adventure, Goku felt more at home in this strange world than ever before. He had good friends, new techniques to master, and the promise of even stronger opponents ahead. What more could a Saiyan ask for? 3 days out from Water 7, Goku was starting to understand why people became pirates. It wasn't just the freedom, though that was part of it. It was the sense of family that came from sharing a ship with people who'd fight and die for each other without question. The Straw Hats had welcomed him like he'd been part of their crew for years, not days. "Higher," Luffy shouted from across the deck. "You're still thinking too much." Goku was suspended upside down from the mast, trying to maintain observation Haki while Luffy pelted him with rubber bullets from 20 feet away. It was harder than it sounded. The bullets weren't fast enough to be dangerous, but they were unpredictable, bouncing off surfaces at weird angles. "I can sense where you are," Goku called back, dodging another rubber projectile. "But your attacks don't follow normal patterns." "Exactly," Luffy grinned. "That's the point. Observation Haki isn't just about predicting attacks, it's about understanding your opponent's intentions." A rubber bullet bounced off the sail, then the railing, then somehow curved back to hit Goku in the shoulder. "Ow, how did you even do that?" "Gum powers are all about creativity." Luffy stretched his arm in an impossible spiral. "You can't predict what I'm going to do if I don't know what I'm going to do." That actually made sense in a weird way. Goku closed his eyes and tried to feel not just Luffy's presence, but his emotions, his intentions, the chaotic joy he brought to everything he did. The next rubber bullet came at him in a triple ricochet. Without opening his eyes, Goku caught it. "There we go," Luffy cheered. "You felt it, didn't you?" "Yeah," Goku said, genuinely amazed. "It wasn't about predicting the attack, it was about understanding you." "Exactly. Observation Haki works best when you really know the person you're fighting." As training continued, other crew members drifted over to watch or offer advice. Goku was learning that each Straw Hat had their own approach to combat, their own philosophy about what it meant to be strong. "Strength without purpose is just destruction," Zoro said during one of their sparring sessions. The swordsman had agreed to help Goku refine his armament Haki, and their clashes were leaving scorch marks on the deck despite Nami's increasingly loud complaints. "What do you mean?" Goku asked, blocking Zoro's wooden training sword with his Haki-coated forearm. "Back on Water 7, you fought those government agents like it was a game. That's fine for training, but real battles aren't games. They're about protecting what matters to you." Zoro's next attack came faster, forcing Goku to really focus on his defense. "I protect people," Goku protested. "I've saved the Earth like 6 times. That's different." Zoro pressed his attack, his own armament Haki making his wooden sword hit like steel. "You fought to save everyone because it was the right thing to do. But have you ever fought for someone specific? Someone whose face you could see, whose voice you could hear?" Goku thought about that as he dodged and weaved. He'd fought to save the Earth, the universe, reality itself. But most of those battles had been against abstract threats, evil emperors, mad gods, cosmic destroyers. Even when he was protecting his friends, it was usually about stopping some ultimate catastrophe. "I think I know what you mean," he said slowly. "It's like the difference between protecting people and protecting your people. Now you're getting it." Their sparring session was interrupted by Sanji calling everyone to lunch. The cook had prepared something special, a massive feast with dishes from all over the Grand Line. "This is incredible," Goku said around a mouthful of what Sanji called Sea King steak. "How do you make everything taste so good?" "Cooking is about more than just flavor," Sanji replied, lighting a cigarette with obvious pride. "It's about nourishment, about giving people the energy they need to follow their dreams." "That's a nice way to think about it. Food connects people," Sanji continued. "Doesn't matter where you're from, what powers you have, what language you speak, everyone needs to eat. Everyone can appreciate a good meal shared with friends." As if to prove his point, Goku found himself in a friendly eating competition with Luffy while the rest of the crew cheered them on. It was ridiculous and fun, and exactly the kind of thing that never would have happened back home. "You know," Goku said during a brief pause in the eating contest, "I never really had friends like this before." "What do you mean?" Nami asked, refilling his water glass. "Back home, most of my friends are fighters too, but we don't spend time together like this. We train, we fight, we save the world, then we go back to our separate lives." Goku gestured around the table. "This is different. You guys actually live together." "That's what crew means," Chopper said, climbing up on the table to check if anyone needed medical attention after the eating contest. "We're not just allies, we're family." "Family," Goku repeated thoughtfully. "Yeah, I like that." The warm moment was interrupted by Brook's voice from the crow's nest, ship approaching. Flying the Big Mom pirate's flag, the mood on deck shifted instantly. Luffy's expression grew serious, Zoro's hand moved to his swords, and Sanji stubbed out his cigarette with the look of a man preparing for violence. Big Mom? Goku asked. Is that bad? Very bad, Robin said grimly. Big Mom is one of the 4 emperors, the most powerful pirates in the world. Her crew is formidable. As the enemy ship drew closer, Goku could sense the power levels of its occupants. Most of them felt like strong humans, but there was one presence that stood out, calm, controlled, and absolutely lethal. That's Katakuri, Luffy said, his voice unusually tense. He's really strong. Like really, really strong. The ship pulled alongside the Thousand Sunny, and a figure leaped across the gap between vessels. He was tall, probably 9 feet, with short spiky hair and a distinctive scarf covering the lower half of his face. When he landed on their deck, Goku could feel the weight of his presence like a physical thing. Straw Hat Luffy, Katakuri said in a deep, measured voice, and the interdimensional anomaly. Mother is very interested in both of you. Big Mom wants to see us, Luffy asked. That's probably not good. Mother wishes to add your unique abilities to her collection, Katakuri continued, his gaze shifting to Goku. She believes an interdimensional being would make a valuable son-in-law. Son-in-law? Goku blinked. I'm already married. That has never stopped Mother before. Well, it's stopping me, Goku said firmly. I'm not interested in marrying anyone except my wife. Katakuri's eyes narrowed slightly. You would refuse an audience with one of the 4 emperors. I'm not refusing anything. I just said I'm not interested in getting married again. There was a long moment of silence. Katakuri seemed to be processing something, his advanced observation Haki no doubt telling him things about Goku that didn't match his expectations. You speak the truth, Katakuri said finally. There is no deception in you, no hidden agenda, you simply are what you appear to be. Is that weird? In this world, extremely. The tension on deck was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone knew this could turn into a fight at any moment, and if it did, they'd be facing one of the strongest people in the world. I have a proposal, Katakuri said after another long pause. A test of strength. If you can land a single blow on me, I will report to Mother that you are unsuitable for marriage. If you cannot, you will come with me willingly. And if I refuse the test, then we fight properly and your crew becomes collateral damage. Goku looked around at his new friends, people who had welcomed him, fed him, taught him about their world. The thought of them getting hurt because of him made something cold and angry stir in his chest. Okay, he said, but just me and you, right? No one else gets involved. Agreed. They moved to the center of the deck, crew members clearing space for what was about to happen. Goku had faced strong opponents before, but this felt different. This wasn't about testing his limits or having fun, this was about protecting people he cared about. Katakuri settled into a fighting stance, his observation Haki already active. Goku could sense him reading the immediate future, predicting every move before it happened. Interesting, Katakuri murmured. Your intentions are pure. You're not fighting for pride or conquest, you're fighting to protect your friends. Is that a problem? For you, no, for me. Katakuri's scarf shifted as he smiled beneath it. It makes you much more dangerous. He moved faster than Goku had expected, his fist wreathed in armament Haki and aimed at Goku's solar plexus. But Goku's own observation Haki, enhanced by his growing understanding of this world's power systems, caught the attack just in time. He dodged but barely. Good reflexes, Katakuri acknowledged, but not good enough. His second attack came from an impossible angle, his arms stretching and morphing like rubber, no, not rubber, something stickier. Machi Machi fruit, Robin called out. He can create and control Machi. The attack wrapped around Goku's arm like a sticky trap. Katakuri used the connection to pull himself forward, knee aimed at Goku's face with enough force to crack stone. Goku twisted, using his superior physical strength to break free of the Machi just in time to avoid the knee strike. But Katakuri was already following up, his advanced observation Haki letting him stay one step ahead. For several minutes, they danced around each other, Katakuri attacking with perfect prediction and timing, Goku defending with pure instinct and adaptability. Neither could land a solid hit. You're improving during the fight, Katakuri observed, dodging a punch that would have taken his head off. Your observation Haki is becoming more refined. You're a good teacher, Goku replied, weaving between a flurry of Machi-enhanced strikes. Fighting someone who can see the future is really educational. You're enjoying this. Kind of, yeah, but not because it's fun. Goku caught one of Katakuri's attacks and used it to pull himself closer. Because I'm fighting for them. He gestured toward the straw hats, and for just a moment, his feelings were completely open, his affection for his new friends, his determination to protect them, his willingness to sacrifice anything to keep them safe. Katakuri's observation Haki read those emotions, and for the first time in the fight, he hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, something clicked for Goku. His ki and Haki merged completely, his body moving without conscious thought, guided by pure protective instinct. Ultra Instinct sign activated, but not like it had in his own world. This version was softer, more controlled, enhanced by observation Haki and driven not by empty mind, but by full heart. He moved. Katakuri's advanced precognition, capable of seeing several seconds into the future, couldn't track him. Not because Goku was moving without thought, but because he was moving with such pure intention that there was nothing to predict. Goku's fist connected with Katakuri's chest, not hard enough to cause serious injury, but solid enough to prove the point. When they separated, both fighters were breathing hard. Katakuri looked down at the point where Goku's punch had landed, then back up at his opponent with something approaching awe. What was that technique? I'm not sure, Goku admitted. It felt like Ultra Instinct, but different, more. Connected, your emotions became so pure that they transcended prediction, Katakuri said slowly. I've never encountered anything like it. He stepped back, formally conceding the match. Mother will not be pleased, he said. But a deal is a deal. You are unsuitable for marriage. Thanks, and hey, if you ever want to spar again, just let me know. That was actually pretty fun once I figured out how to hit you. Katakuri paused as he prepared to leave. May I ask you something? Sure. Why do you fight? Goku considered the question seriously. Back home, he would have said to get stronger without hesitation. But now, to protect the people I care about, he said. And to understand what it really means to be strong. Katakuri nodded slowly. I think you already understand more than you realize. As the Big Mom pirates departed, the Straw Hats crowded around Goku with a mixture of awe and concern. Are you okay? Chopper asked, checking him for injuries. That guy hit you pretty hard a few times. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Goku looked at his hands, still feeling the echo of that perfect moment when his heart and mind had worked in complete harmony. I think I learned something important today. What's that? Luffy asked. Fighting for other people makes you stronger than fighting for yourself. Took you long enough to figure that out, Zoro said with a grin. But yeah, that's the secret. Real strength comes from having something worth protecting. As the sun set over the Grand Line, Goku found himself on the ship's figurehead again, but this time he wasn't alone. Luffy had joined him, along with several other crew members. So, Luffy said, what do you think of being a pirate so far? It's complicated, Goku admitted. Back home, things were simpler. Good guys, bad guys, save the world. But here everyone's got their own dream, Robin finished. Their own version of freedom. And sometimes those dreams conflict with each other, Sanji added. That's what makes it interesting. Goku nodded, watching unfamiliar stars appear in the darkening sky. I'm starting to understand. It's not about being the strongest, it's about being strong enough to protect what matters to you. Now you're thinking like a pirate, Nami said with approval. As the night deepened and the crew began to drift toward their quarters, Goku remained on the figurehead, practicing his new technique. That moment of perfect harmony between emotion and instinct, he wanted to understand it better, to master it. But more than that, he wanted to be worthy of the trust his new friends had placed in him. They'd accepted him without question, made him part of their family, taught him what it really meant to fight for others. In the distance, barely visible against the stars, another ship followed at a safe distance. Its sails bore the symbol of the world government, and its captain was reporting their position through an encrypted den mushi. The hunt for Goku was far from over, but now he had something more than just power to draw on. He had people worth protecting. And that, as Katakuri had discovered, made him infinitely more dangerous than any mere technique ever could. The nightmare started 3 days after the encounter with Katakuri. Goku woke up screaming, his body drenched in sweat and his ki flaring wildly before he could control it. The surge of uncontrolled energy was strong enough to rattle the entire ship, waking the crew and sending Nami storming into the men's quarters with murder in her eyes. What the hell? She began, then stopped when she saw Goku's condition. He was sitting on the edge of his hammock, shaking and breathing hard like he'd just finished a marathon. Sorry, he gasped. Bad dream, really bad dream. Dreams don't usually crack the ship's mast, Zoro observed, pointing to a fresh split in the wood visible through the porthole. This one did. Goku ran his hands through his hair, trying to shake off the lingering images. I was fighting someone I recognized, but wrong, like they'd been twisted into something else. Who? Luffy asked, padding into the room in his pajamas. Despite being woken up, he looked more concerned than annoyed. I don't know, that's what's weird about it. I felt like I should know them, but their energy was all. Goku struggled to find the words. It felt like ki, but also like Haki, like someone from my world had learned to use this world's power system. Robin appeared in the doorway, fully dressed despite the early hour. That's interesting. How much do you remember about the dream? Fragments. Goku closed his eyes, trying to recall details. A city in the clouds, ancient technology, and this voice saying something about completing the cycle. A city in the clouds, Robin repeated thoughtfully. That could be Skypia, but there are other sky islands. Do you remember anything else? Before Goku could answer, Brook's voice echoed down from the crow's nest. Marine ships approaching. 3 battleships, Admiral class. The crew's mood shifted instantly from concern to battle readiness. They'd been expecting retaliation after the Water 7 incident, but 3 Admiral-class ships was serious firepower. Gear up, Luffy ordered, his usual playfulness replaced by focused intensity. Goku, you feeling up for a fight? Always, Goku replied, his earlier distress forgotten. Though maybe we should try talking to them first. I'm still getting used to this whole Pirates versus Marines thing. Worth a shot, Nami agreed, though she was already checking her climatact. But be ready for Plan B. As they reached the deck, Goku could see the marine ships closing in with military precision. But something felt off about this approach. They weren't moving to surround the Sunny, just maintaining a parallel course at respectful distance. A den mushi on their ship began ringing. Nami answered it hesitantly. This is Vice Admiral Garp, the voice boomed through the speaker, cheerful and completely at odds with the situation. I want to talk to the interdimensional kid. Garp. Luffy's expression went through several complicated emotions in rapid succession. Oh no, you know him, Goku asked. That's my grandpa. Everyone stared at Luffy. Even after months of traveling together, the crew was still learning surprising things about their captain. Your grandfather is a Marine Vice Admiral, Nami shrieked. And you never thought to mention this. It never came up. The conversation was interrupted by a cannonball flying over their heads, not at them, but close enough to get their attention. A second later, a figure launched himself from the lead marine ship, crossing the distance between vessels in a single jump that defied physics. Vice Admiral Garp landed on the Sunny's deck with enough force to make the whole ship shudder. He was exactly what Goku would have pictured if someone had described Luffy's grandfather, big, loud, grinning, and radiating an aura of barely controlled chaos. Luffy, Garp bellowed, immediately grabbing his grandson in a headlock. How's my favorite pirate grandson doing? Grandpa, stop. You're embarrassing me in front of my crew. You should be embarrassed, becoming a pirate instead of a respectable Marine like your old man wanted. As the family reunion continued, Garp's attention shifted to Goku. And you must be the interdimensional warrior everyone's talking about. I have to say, your reputation precedes you. All good things, I hope, Goku said, extending his hand for a handshake. Garp's grip was like a steel vise, and Goku could feel the older man testing his strength. Strong grip, good instincts. I can see why the government boys are so worked up about you. They keep trying to capture me for experiments. Yeah, they do that. Garp released his hand and plopped down on a nearby crate like he owned the ship. Mind if I ask you a question? Sure. What do you know about energy signatures? It was such an unexpected question that Goku blinked. What do you mean? Well, see, we've got these ancient weapons. 3 of them supposedly the most powerful things ever created. And lately, they've been reacting to something, giving off energy readings that match what our scientists recorded during your little scuffle at Water 7. The crew exchanged glances. This was way more information than they'd expected from a casual conversation with a Marine Vice Admiral. You're saying the ancient weapons are responding to Goku? Robin asked carefully. Not just responding, resonating. Like they recognize his energy signature. Garp's expression grew more serious. Thing is, that shouldn't be possible. These weapons are older than recorded history. Goku felt a chill that had nothing to do with the sea breeze. How much older? 800 years, give or take, from before the Void Century when most historical records were lost. Lost or destroyed, Robin's voice was sharp with professional interest. Bit of both, Garp admitted. But here's the really interesting part, we found something else. Deep in the government archives, in files so classified most people don't even know they exist. He pulled out a small photograph and handed it to Goku. The image was old and faded, but clear enough to make Goku's blood run cold. It showed a figure in orange gi, standing next to what was clearly an ancient weapon. The person's face was obscured, but the clothing, the posture, the spiky hair, it could have been Goku himself. "Where did you get this?" Goku whispered. "Excavation site on an island that doesn't officially exist." "The archaeologists who found it. Well, let's say the world government wasn't happy about the discovery." Garp's expression was grim. "Thing is, carbon dating puts this photograph at around 800 years old." "That's impossible," Chopper said. "Photography wasn't invented that long ago." "Exactly, which means either our dating methods are wrong, or this picture shows someone using technology that shouldn't have existed yet." Goku stared at the photograph, his mind racing. The figure looked like him, but something felt different, older maybe, more weathered. "There's more," Garp continued. "The energy readings from the ancient weapons, they're not just similar to yours, they're identical. Like whoever left them behind used the same power source you do." "Kai," Goku said slowly, "you're saying someone from my world was here before." "That's what it looks like. Question is who? And why did they leave weapons capable of destroying the world?" Before Goku could answer, his enhanced senses picked up something alarming. The air itself felt different, charged with an energy that made his ki respond involuntarily. "Something's coming," he said, looking up at the clear sky. "Something big." A portal tore open above them, crackling with the same interdimensional energy Goku remembered from his own arrival. But this portal was controlled, deliberate, nothing like the accident that had brought him here. A figure dropped through, landing on the deck with practiced ease. At first glance, he looked human, tall, well-built, wearing what appeared to be a modified version of Saiyan armor. But when he looked up, his eyes held an ancient weariness that spoke of centuries of experience. "Hello, Kakarot," the figure said, his voice carrying a mix of familiarity and regret. "I was wondering when you'd finally show up." Goku's heart stopped, that face older and more scarred than he remembered, but unmistakable. "Bardock," he whispered. "Hello, son." The silence that followed was deafening. Even Garp seemed stunned by this development. "Your father?" Luffy asked, looking between them. "But I thought you said—" "I thought he was dead," Goku finished. "He died when our home planet was destroyed." "I saw it happen." "Death," Bardock said with a bitter smile, "is more complicated than you might think, especially when you're dealing with interdimensional travel and ancient weapons that can manipulate the very fabric of space and time." He gestured to the portal, which was still crackling overhead. "I've been in this world for 800 years, Kakarot, watching, waiting, trying to prevent a catastrophe that I may have inadvertently caused." 800 years, Robin's eyes were wide. "Then you're the one who helped create the ancient weapons, yes, and who's been trying to keep them sealed ever since." Bardock's expression was heavy with guilt. "I came here by accident, much like you did. But instead of finding friends and allies, I found a world on the brink of destroying itself." "The Void Century," Garp said quietly. "You were there. I was, and I made choices that I've regretted every day since." Bardock looked at Goku with eyes full of pain. "The weapons I helped create were meant to protect this world. Instead, they nearly tore it apart." "What kind of weapons?" Goku asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew. "Fusion reactors powered by ki energy. Technology that could harness the life force of entire islands." Bardock's voice was barely above a whisper. "I taught them how to build them, thinking I was helping. Instead, I gave them the power to reshape reality itself." "The ancient weapons," Robin breathed. "Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus. You helped create all three." "I created the power source. The people of the ancient kingdom built the weapons around it." Bardock looked out at the horizon, where the marine ships waited at a respectful distance. "And when they lost control, when the weapons began tearing holes in spacetime itself, I helped seal them away." "But they're still active," Garp said, "still responding to energy signatures, because my son's arrival has awakened them." Bardock's gaze returned to Goku. "The same key signature that powered their creation is here again. They're trying to reestablish their connection." Goku felt pieces clicking into place in his mind, the way his ki had felt muffled when he first arrived. The strange resonance he'd felt with Haki, the dreams of ancient technology and familiar but strong energies. "That's why my power felt different here," he said. "The weapons were interfering with it. And as you've grown stronger, as you've learned to blend ki with Haki, you've been sending out energy patterns that match the weapon's original configuration." Bardock nodded grimly. "They're trying to reactivate." "What happens if they do?" Luffy asked. "Best case scenario, they tear holes between dimensions that can't be closed, eventually destroying both worlds." Bardock's expression was stone cold. "Worst case, they achieve full resonance with Kakarot's energy and begin converting matter into pure ki at a planetary scale." "How long do we have?" Robin's voice was calm, but Goku could sense her fear. That depends on how fast Kakarot continues to evolve his abilities. Bardock studied his son with professional assessment. Based on what I've observed so far, maybe weeks, maybe days. So what do we do? Nami asked. We find the weapons and shut them down permanently. Bardock opened his hand, revealing a small device that looked like a cross between a dragon radar and a compass. I've spent 8 centuries learning how they work. I know where they are and I know how to stop them. And if we can't, Goku asked quietly. Bardock met his eyes with the steady gaze of someone who'd faced impossible choices before. Then I destroy them, he said simply. Even if it kills me, even if it kills us both. Because I won't let my mistakes destroy 2 worlds. The weight of that statement settled over everyone like a heavy blanket. Goku looked around at his friends, his crew, and saw determination mixed with fear in their faces. Well, Luffy said finally, his voice carrying that special kind of conviction that made people want to follow him into hell itself. Looks like we're going after some ancient weapons. This isn't your fight, Bardock warned. These weapons are beyond anything this world has ever seen. Fighting them means risking everything. Yeah, Luffy grinned, and for the first time since Bardock's arrival, Goku felt a spark of hope. Sounds like fun. As the crew began making preparations for what was sure to be their most dangerous adventure yet, Goku found himself standing with his father at the ship's railing, both of them staring out at the endless ocean. 800 years, Goku said quietly. You've been alone here for 800 years. Not alone, Bardock replied, just distant, watching, trying to atone. For what? You were trying to help. Good intentions don't excuse catastrophic results, Kakarot. I gave this world power it wasn't ready for, and people died because of it. Lots of people. They stood in silence for a while, father and son processing the magnitude of what they faced. Hey, Dad, Goku said finally. Yeah, thanks for warning us. And for trying to fix things. Bardock's weathered face softened slightly. Thank you for becoming the kind of person worth saving, son. As the Thousand Sunny changed course toward their first destination, the hidden location of the ancient weapon Pluton, Goku felt something settling into place in his chest. Not just power, though he could feel his abilities continuing to evolve. Not just purpose, though he finally understood what he was fighting for. Family, not just blood relatives, but the bonds forged through shared struggle and mutual trust. The Straw Hats who'd welcomed him without question. His father, carrying 8 centuries of guilt and determination. Even Garp, who'd shared classified information because it was the right thing to do. The ancient weapons were stirring, responding to his presence like tuning forks resonating with the same frequency. But Goku was no longer the same person who'd fallen out of the sky a few weeks ago. He was stronger now. More complete, and for the first time since arriving in this world, he was ready for whatever came next. The Revolutionary Army's base was not what Goku had expected. Hidden in a massive tree on an island that didn't appear on any official maps, the facility buzzed with activity that reminded him more of a research station than a military headquarters. People in green cloaks moved between laboratories and meeting rooms, analyzing data and coordinating operations across the Grand Line. Dragon will see you now, a woman with orange hair and a mechanical arm announced, leading them through corridors lined with maps, documents, and what appeared to be pieces of ancient technology. Goku stayed close to Bardock as they walked, still processing the fact that his father, who he'd thought was dead for most of his life, was not only alive but had been living in this world for 8 centuries. The man beside him moved with quiet confidence through the revolutionary base, clearly familiar with the layout. You've been here before, Goku observed. Many times, the Revolutionary Army and I have. Shared interests when it comes to preventing the world government from gaining access to certain technologies. Bardock's expression was grim. Dragon's one of the few people who knows the full truth about what happened during the Void Century. They were led into a large chamber dominated by an enormous desk covered in charts and reports. Behind it sat a man who immediately commanded attention, tall, imposing, with tribal tattoos covering half his face and an aura of barely contained power. Bardock, Dragon said, his voice deep and measured. I was wondering when you'd surface again. The ancient weapons activity has been increasing exponentially over the past week. My son's presence is accelerating the resonance, Bardock replied. We need to move faster than planned. Dragon's gaze shifted to Goku, studying him with the intensity of someone accustomed to reading people's intentions. So you're the interdimensional warrior who's been causing such a stir. I have to say your arrival has complicated several of our long-term operations. Sorry about that, Goku said automatically. I didn't mean to cause problems. Actually, you may have done us a favor. Dragon leaned back in his chair. The world government's desperation to capture you has forced them to reveal resources and capabilities they've kept hidden for decades. We've learned more about their ancient weapon research in the past 2 weeks than in the previous 5 years. Robin stepped forward, her expression intense with scholarly interest. What exactly do they know about the Void Century? More than they let on, less than they need. Dragon gestured to a map on the wall showing various islands throughout the Grand Line. They've been systematically excavating sites connected to the ancient kingdom for decades, looking for technology they can weaponize. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. Because they don't know about Ki, Goku realized. Exactly, they see the ancient weapons as mechanical devices, powerful, yes, but ultimately controllable through conventional means. Dragon's smile was cold. They have no idea they're dealing with fusion reactors powered by interdimensional energy. Bardock moved to the map, pointing to 3 locations marked with special symbols. Pluton is here, sealed beneath the ruins of an ancient city. Poseidon, well, Poseidon is a person, not a place. But Uranus, he paused, his expression troubled. Uranus is the most dangerous of the 3. It's not just a weapon, it's a dimensional anchor. What does that mean? Luffy asked. It was designed to stabilize the barriers between worlds, Bardock explained. When the ancient kingdom's experiments began tearing holes in reality, Uranus was their attempt to fix the damage. But instead of sealing the rifts, it began expanding them. And now it's responding to Goku's energy signature, Dragon concluded, which means those rifts are starting to reopen. As if to emphasize the point, a tremor ran through the tree base. Not an earthquake, something else. Something that made the air itself vibrate with unfamiliar energy. That's been happening more frequently, Dragon said grimly. Dimensional instabilities. Small ones for now, but growing stronger. Goku closed his eyes and extended his senses, trying to feel what was causing the disturbances. There, a familiar resonance, like an echo of his own ki but distorted somehow. Ancient. Angry, the weapons are trying to synchronize with me, he said, opening his eyes. I can feel them reaching out. Which is why we need to reach them first, Bardock said urgently. Before the synchronization becomes complete. What happens if it does become complete? Sanji asked, lighting a cigarette with slightly shaking hands. Best case scenario. The weapons activate at partial power and start converting matter into energy on a localized scale. Maybe destroy a few islands. Bardock's voice was flat, clinical. Worst case. They achieve full resonance and begin rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in both our universes. How long do we have? Nami's navigator instincts were already calculating distances and travel times. Days, maybe less. Dragon pulled out a thick folder filled with intelligence reports. Our agents report increasing seismic activity at all 3 weapon sites. The world government is mobilizing their entire fleet to secure the locations. They know something big is coming. Then we split up, Luffy said with his usual decisive confidence. 3 weapons, 3 teams. Absolutely not, Dragon replied immediately. These weapons aren't just powerful, they're intelligent. Splitting up would be suicide. Intelligent? Chopper squeaked. The Kai-powered fusion cores don't just generate energy, Bardock explained. They learn, adapt. Each weapon has been developing its own personality over the past 8 centuries, and none of them are particularly fond of organic life. Goku felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. You're saying they're alive? Not alive exactly, but aware, and they remember what happened during the Void Century. They remember the wars, the destruction, the billions who died when the barriers between worlds started breaking down. Bardock's expression was haunted. They blame organic life for all of it. Great, Zoro muttered, murderous ancient weapons with daddy issues. It gets worse, Dragon continued. According to our intelligence, the world government has managed to establish partial communication with at least one of the weapons. They're not just trying to control them, they're trying to negotiate with them. Negotiate what? Robin asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. The complete elimination of what they call dimensional contamination. In other words, the complete destruction of anyone or anything connected to interdimensional travel. Dragon's gaze fixed on Goku. Starting with you, the weight of that information settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Goku found himself thinking about Chi-Chi, about Gohan and Goten, about his friends back home. If these weapons achieved full synchronization with his energy, would the damage spread to his own universe? There's something else, Bardock said quietly, something I haven't told you yet. Everyone turned to look at him. The reason I've stayed in this world for 8 centuries, the reason I've been trying to keep the weapons sealed, it's not just guilt. His weathered face showed every one of those long years. It's because going home might trigger the synchronization immediately. What do you mean? Goku asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. My key signature is hardwired into the weapon's core systems. If I leave this dimensional space, if I try to return to our universe, the sudden absence of my energy would cause them to seek the nearest similar source. Bardock met his son's eyes. So you've been trapped here, Goku said softly. All this time, you've been protecting both worlds by staying. A prison of my own making. Bardock's smile was bitter. Though I have to admit, watching this world develop over the centuries has been educational. I've learned things about strength and freedom that I never understood back home. Such as? Dragon asked with genuine interest. That real power doesn't come from individual strength. It comes from the bonds between people, the willingness to sacrifice for others, the determination to protect what matters most. Bardock looked around the room, his gaze lingering on each of the straw hats. Things your crew understands better than most, Luffy. Luffy beamed at the compliment, then grew serious again. So what's the plan? How do we stop these weapons without getting everyone killed? Carefully, Dragon replied. We start with Pluton, it's the most stable of the three, and our intelligence suggests it's not yet fully synchronized with Goku's energy signature. If we can reach it first, we might be able to shut down its fusion core without triggering a chain reaction. And if we can't? Goku asked. Then we improvise, Bardock said grimly. But first, we need to make sure you're ready for what's coming. Your power has been evolving rapidly since you arrived here, but you're going to need more than raw strength to face these weapons. What do you mean? I mean it's time you learned the real secrets of key manipulation. Techniques I should have taught you years ago if I'd been there. Bardock's expression was heavy with regret. Starting with something the people of this world call the Will of D, Dragon's eyebrows shot up. You know about that? I've had 8 centuries to study this world's unique energy patterns. The Will of D isn't just a bloodline trait, it's a specific type of key resonance that allows certain individuals to influence the fundamental structure of reality. Bardock turned to Luffy. Your family carries it, so does dragons, and so it turns out do certain Saiyans. I have the Will of D, Goku asked, confused. Not exactly, but you have something similar, a key signature that resonates with the basic forces that hold dimensions together. It's why your arrival destabilized the barriers between worlds. It's why the ancient weapons are responding to you. Bardock's smile was proud despite the circumstances. And it's why you might be the only person who can safely interface with their core systems. Interface how? Robin asked. Direct neural connection. Goku links his consciousness with the weapon's awareness core and convinces it to shut down voluntarily. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications of that plan. That sounds incredibly dangerous, Chopper said finally. It is. If the weapon rejects the connection, or if Goku can't maintain his sense of self while linked to an artificial intelligence powered by 8 centuries of rage, well, we'd lose both him and any chance of stopping the other weapons. I'll do it, Goku said immediately. Goku, Luffy started. No, it makes sense. This whole situation is my fault anyway. If my arrival caused this, then I should be the one to fix it. It's not your fault, Bardock said firmly. The weapons were unstable long before you got here. Your presence just accelerated an inevitable crisis. Still, Goku's expression was determined. These people, this world, they've given me so much. A chance to understand what real strength means, friends who fight beside me without asking for anything in return, a purpose beyond just getting stronger. He looked around at the straw hats, his new family. I won't let them down. Dragon studied him for a long moment, then nodded approvingly. I can see why the government is so worried about you. That kind of conviction is dangerous to people who rule through fear. Speaking of which, Bardock interjected, we need to discuss the elephant in the room. The government isn't going to just let us waltz in and shut down their ancient weapons. They'll throw everything they have at us. Let them come, Zoro said, his hand moving instinctively to his swords. We've faced their best before. Not like this. They're mobilizing Admirals, CP0, even some of their secret weapons, plus whatever deals they've made with the ancient weapons themselves. Dragon's expression was grim. This is going to be the largest military operation in world government history. Then we'd better make sure we're ready, Luffy said with his characteristic grin. Right, crew. The answering chorus of agreement from the Straw Hats was immediate and unanimous. Even faced with impossible odds and ancient weapons that could destroy reality itself, they stood together without hesitation. Goku felt something warm and powerful settle in his chest, not ki, not Haki, but something that combined the best of both. The strength that came from having people worth protecting, people who would stand with you no matter what. All right then, he said, cracking his knuckles. Let's go save 2 worlds. As the Revolutionary Army began coordinating with the Straw Hats for the most dangerous mission any of them had ever attempted, Goku found himself training with his father in a specially constructed chamber deep within the tree base. The neural interface technique isn't just about power, Bardock explained as they practiced. It's about empathy. You'll need to understand the weapon's perspective, its pain, its anger. Only then can you convince it to choose peace over vengeance. And if I can't, then we all die and both universes probably follow us into oblivion. Bardock's smile was encouraging despite his words. No pressure, Goku actually laughed at the absurdity of it all. Here he was, in an alien world, preparing to save reality itself by having a heart-to-heart conversation with a murderous ancient weapon. It was exactly the kind of impossible situation that made him feel most alive. Dad, he said as they took a break from training. Yeah, thanks for staying, for protecting both worlds even when it meant you couldn't come home. Bardock's weathered face softened. Thank you for becoming someone worth staying for, son. Outside the training chamber, the Revolutionary Army worked through the night, coordinating with pirates, rebels, and anyone else willing to stand against the greatest threat either world had ever faced. The ancient weapons were stirring, reality was beginning to crack at the seams, and the world government was mobilizing for total war. But for the first time since this whole crisis began, Goku felt genuinely optimistic about their chances. After all, he had the best crew in the world at his side. What could possibly go wrong? The training ground was unlike anything Goku had ever experienced. Deep beneath the Revolutionary Army's tree base, in a chamber carved from living wood and reinforced with sea stone, the air itself seemed to vibrate with concentrated willpower. This wasn't just a place for physical training. It was where the strongest Haki users in the world came to push the very limits of what human determination could achieve. Your form is sloppy, came a familiar gravelly voice from behind him. Goku spun around to see an elderly man with wild gray hair, circular glasses, and a presence that made the air feel heavier. Despite his aged appearance, the newcomer radiated the kind of calm confidence that only came from decades of being one of the strongest people alive. Silver's Rayleigh, Dragon said respectfully. I wasn't expecting you for another few days. Plans change when ancient weapons start trying to remake reality, Rayleigh replied, his sharp eyes fixed on Goku. Besides, I was curious about the interdimensional warrior who's been giving the government such headaches. You're the Dark King, Robin said, recognition lighting up her face. The Pirate King's right-hand man. Former right-hand man, Rayleigh corrected gently. These days I'm more of a consultant. Speaking of which, he turned back to Goku, who was still processing the fact that he was meeting actual pirate royalty. Your Haki technique is powerful but unrefined. You're treating it like a blunt instrument instead of a precision tool. I've only been learning it for a few weeks, Goku said defensively. And in those few weeks, you've achieved a level of proficiency that takes most people years to develop, Rayleigh acknowledged. Which is exactly why your technique is so dangerous. You've gained power without understanding, strength without wisdom. Before Goku could ask what that meant, Rayleigh moved. There was no warning, no visible preparation. One moment the old man was standing casually 10 feet away, the next his palm was hovering an inch from Goku's chest. Goku's newly trained observation Haki hadn't detected even the slightest killing intent. That, Rayleigh said calmly, is the difference between power and mastery. How did you do that? By understanding that Haki isn't about imposing your will on the world, it's about harmonizing your will with the natural flow of reality. Rayleigh stepped back, but his presence remained intimidating. You've been fighting Haki like it's a foreign language, but you already speak a similar language, don't you? This key energy your father mentioned. Kai is about drawing energy from within and projecting it outward, Goku said slowly, trying to put the concepts into words. But Haki feels different, more connected to everything around me. Exactly. Ki is individual power. Haki is universal power channeled through individual will. Dragon joined the conversation, his own formidable presence adding weight to the lesson. The strongest Haki users learn to blur that distinction. Show me, Goku said immediately. Rayleigh smiled. Eager, I like that. Very well, but this isn't going to be gentle sparring. If you want to learn advanced Haki techniques in days instead of decades, you'll need to be pushed beyond your current limits. What followed was the most intense training session of Goku's life. Rayleigh's approach was completely different from any teacher Goku had ever had. Instead of focusing on raw power or physical techniques, The old pirate attacked Goku's fundamental assumptions about how energy and willpower interacted. "Stop trying to force your Haki to behave like Ki," Rayleigh instructed as Goku struggled to maintain observation Haki while dodging the older man's seemingly casual attacks. "They're cousins, not twins. Feel the difference?" Goku closed his eyes, extending his senses while weaving between strikes that somehow managed to be both gentle and devastating. Ki felt warm, flowing from his core outward like sunlight. But Haki felt like starlight, cool and distant but infinitely vast, connecting him to everything around him. "I think I understand," he said, opening his eyes just in time to catch Rayleigh's fist inches from his face. "Do you? Then show me." Goku's next technique was different. Instead of coating his arm with armament Haki-like armor, he let the energy flow through him like a river, connecting his will to the fundamental forces that held matter together. When he struck back at Rayleigh, his punch carried not just physical force but a resonance that made the air itself ring like a bell. "Better," Rayleigh nodded approvingly. "You're beginning to understand that Haki isn't separate from the world, it's part of it. Now try something harder." "Harder how?" "Combine your Ki and Haki without letting either one dominate the other. True fusion, not just layering one on top of the other." That should have been impossible. Ki and Haki operated on completely different principles, drew from different sources, expressed themselves through different mechanisms. But as Goku centered himself, feeling the warm flow of Ki from his core and the cool connection of Haki to everything around him, something remarkable happened. They began to harmonize. Not merging into a single energy, but working together like instruments in an orchestra. His Ki provided the raw power while his Haki gave it direction and purpose. The result was something entirely new, a technique that belonged fully to neither world but somehow enhanced both. "Extraordinary," Dragon breathed. "I've never seen anything like that energy signature." "Nor have I," Rayleigh admitted. "But I have a theory about what you've just achieved." "May I?" He gestured toward Goku, who nodded permission. Rayleigh placed his hand on Goku's shoulder and closed his eyes, his own advanced Haki reading the energy patterns flowing through the younger fighter. "Fascinating, you haven't just combined two different power systems, you've created a bridge between them. A technique that could theoretically allow someone from your world to use Haki, or someone from this world to manipulate Ki. Is that good or bad? That depends on who learns it," Dragon said grimly. "If this technique fell into the wrong hands, the government would use it to create soldiers who could match your power," Rayleigh finished. "But used properly, it might be exactly what we need to interface with the ancient weapons." Over the following days, the training intensified. Dragon joined the sessions, bringing his own mastery of advanced conquerors' Haki to bear. Under the combined instruction of two of the world's most powerful Haki users, Goku's understanding of willpower-based combat evolved at an incredible rate. "Conqueror's Haki isn't about domination," Dragon explained as they practiced in the deep chamber. "It's about conviction, the unshakable belief that your will should shape reality." "But what if your will is wrong?" Goku asked. "What if you're fighting for something that hurts people? Then your conqueror's Haki will be weak," Dragon replied simply. "True conviction can only come from true understanding. That's why the strongest users of conqueror's Haki are often the ones who fight not for personal power, but for something greater than themselves." "Freedom," Goku said, the word carrying more weight than it had when he'd first arrived in this world. "Exactly, but not just the freedom to do whatever you want, the freedom for everyone to pursue their dreams without fear or oppression." Dragon's tattoos seemed to glow with inner light as his own conqueror's Haki flared. "That's what separates pirates like Luffy from tyrants like the celestial dragons. The freedom to protect what matters to you," Goku added, thinking of his crew, his father, the two worlds hanging in the balance. "Now you're beginning to understand." When Goku's own conqueror's Haki manifested, it was nothing like what anyone expected. Most users of conqueror's Haki projected an aura of dominance, a pressure that demanded submission from weaker wills. But Goku's version felt different, warmer, more inviting. Instead of demanding submission, it seemed to offer alliance. Instead of crushing opposition, it sought to understand and unite. "Remarkable," Rayleigh murmured as the chamber filled with Goku's unique spiritual pressure. "I've never encountered conqueror's Haki based on compassion rather than dominance." "It makes sense," Dragon observed. "His entire fighting philosophy is built around understanding his opponents, not conquering them." But the real breakthrough came when Goku attempted to combine all three types of Haki with his perfected Ultra Instinct technique. The chamber fell completely silent as silver energy began flickering around Goku's form. But this wasn't the cold, empty ultra instinct he'd known in his own world. This version was warm, connected, enhanced by his understanding of Haki and his determination to protect others. His hair shifted to silver, but his eyes remained warm and focused. His movements became impossibly fluid, but they were guided not by emptiness but by perfect harmony between thought and feeling, power and purpose. Ultra Instinct Haki, he said quietly, marveling at how complete the technique felt. I can sense everything, not just attacks and intentions, but dreams, fears, the connections between all living things. And you can act on that understanding without losing yourself in analysis, Rayleigh added, his voice filled with professional admiration. Truly extraordinary. Their training was interrupted by urgent alarms echoing through the base. Robin's voice came through the chamber's communication system, tight with concern. Emergency meeting in the command center. The government has accelerated their timeline. They're moving on Pluton now. As they rushed through the base's corridors, Goku found himself processing everything he'd learned. The techniques were important, but what mattered more was the understanding behind them. Strength wasn't about overpowering your enemies. It was about being strong enough to protect what you loved without losing sight of what made that protection worthwhile. The command center was chaos when they arrived. Maps covered every surface, communication devices chattered with reports from agents around the world, and Dragon's staff moved with the focused intensity of people coordinating a massive operation. Situation report, Dragon commanded as they entered. Government forces have surrounded the Pluton site, came the immediate response from a green-cloaked intelligence officer. 3 Admiral-level commanders, 50 battleships, and what appears to be some kind of massive excavation equipment. They're not just trying to secure the site, Robin said, studying satellite images. They're trying to dig directly to the weapons core chamber. That's insane, Bardock said, examining the same images. If they breach the containment seals without proper precautions, they could trigger a partial activation. How partial? Luffy asked. Enough to level the entire island and send dimensional shockwaves across half the Grand Line, Bardock replied grimly. So we stop them, Luffy said with characteristic simplicity. With what army? One of the revolutionary officers asked. They have us outnumbered 50-1, and that's not counting whatever weapons they've brought. We don't need an army, Goku said quietly, his newly enhanced perception letting him sense the fear and determination radiating from everyone in the room. We just need to be faster than them. Faster how? Dragon asked. I'll go in first, using Ultra Instinct Haki to reach the weapon core before they can breach it. Once I establish neural contact, I can shut down the weapon systems from the inside. That's suicide, Bardock protested. You'll be facing 3 admirals plus whatever defenses the weapon itself has. Then come with me, Goku said simply. You know these weapons better than anyone, and I've learned some new techniques that might even the odds. As the crew prepared for what would undoubtedly be their most dangerous mission yet, Goku found himself standing with Rayleigh on the base's observation deck, looking out at the ocean where their destiny waited. Nervous, the old pirate asked. Terrified, Goku admitted. But also, excited. Is that wrong? Not at all. Fear keeps you careful, excitement keeps you strong. Just remember, this isn't about proving your power anymore. It's about using that power to protect something bigger than yourself. The freedom to dream, Goku said, thinking of Luffy's infectious ambition, of his father's 8th century vigil, of a world where people could pursue their goals without fear. Exactly, don't lose sight of that when the fighting starts. As the Thousand Sunny prepared to sail toward what might be their final battle, Goku felt something settle into place in his chest. Not just power, though his new Ultra Instinct Haki technique gave him capabilities he'd never dreamed of. Not just purpose, though he finally understood what he was truly fighting for. Peace. The deep, unshakable certainty that came from knowing you were exactly where you needed to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do, surrounded by people who would stand with you no matter what. The ancient weapons were stirring, the government was mobilizing for total war, and the fate of 2 universes hung in the balance. But Goku had his crew beside him, his father at his back, and techniques that bridged the gap between worlds. He was ready for whatever came next. After all, he'd learned the most important lesson of all. True strength wasn't about being powerful enough to win any fight, it was about being wise enough to fight for the right reasons. And this fight. This was as right as they came. The approach to Pluton's resting place was like sailing into a war zone. From the deck of the Thousand Sunny, Goku could see the massive government fleet arranged in perfect formation around what had once been a peaceful island. 50 battleships formed concentric circles of steel and cannon fire, while massive excavation vessels tore into the island's surface with mechanical precision. "They're not wasting any time," Nami observed, lowering her telescope with a grim expression. "Whatever they're digging for, they expect to reach it soon." "The outer containment seals," Bardock said, studying the excavation pattern through his own scope. 800 years ago, we buried Pluton under layers of sea stone and reinforced rock to prevent accidental activation. They're systematically removing each layer. "How long until they reach the weapon itself?" Robin asked. "At this rate, hours, maybe less." Bardock's weathered face was taut with worry. "And if they breach the core chamber without proper precautions?" "Boom," Frankie summarized with his usual eloquence. "Big boom." Before anyone could respond, a new presence registered on Goku's enhanced senses. Something fast was approaching from the direction of the government fleet, not a ship, but a person moving across the water's surface at impossible speed. "Contact incoming," he announced, settling into a ready stance. Really fast, really strong. The figure that appeared on their deck moments later was not what any of them had expected. He was tall and lean, with wild black hair and a scar running down the left side of his face. His clothes were simple: black pants, an open vest, and a wide-brimmed hat. But he moved with the casual confidence of someone who had never met an opponent he couldn't handle. "Well," the stranger said, his voice carrying a slight drawl, "this is interesting. The interdimensional warrior and his merry band of pirates, sailing straight into the biggest government operation in history." Zoro's hand moved to his swords. "Who are you, Portgas d'Ace?" the stranger replied, tipping his hat slightly. "Though I suppose that name doesn't mean much to our interdimensional friend here." "Ace," Luffy's voice cracked with emotion. "But you're supposed to be dead. Yeah, that's what everyone thinks." Ace's grin was both sad and wild. "Turns out, getting punched through the chest by molten rock isn't quite as fatal as it looks, especially when you've got the right kind of medical attention." The reunion that followed was typically chaotic for the Straw Hats. Luffy launched himself at his sworn brother with enough force to knock both of them across the deck, while the rest of the crew tried to process the fact that one of the most famous, dead, pirates in the world was very much alive. "How?" Robin asked, her scholarly mind demanding answers even as she watched Luffy cry tears of joy. "Revolutionary Army medics," Ace explained, still grinning as he extracted himself from Luffy's enthusiastic embrace. "Dragon's people have some very advanced life-saving techniques, especially when they're motivated by the chance to fake the death of someone the government really wanted to execute." "You've been working with the Revolutionary Army this whole time?" Nami asked. "Among others, turns out being officially dead is great for your career as an underground operative." Ace's expression grew more serious as he looked at Goku. "Which brings me to why I'm here. I've got information about what the government is really after." "Pluton," Bardock said grimly. "Not just Pluton, all 3 weapons activated simultaneously." Ace pulled out a small device that looked like a miniaturized Den Mushi. "We intercepted this communication from the lead admiral an hour ago." The device crackled to life, playing a recorded conversation. "Phase 1 excavation nearly complete. Pluton core chamber should be accessible within 3 hours. Excellent, and the synchronization device, ready for deployment. Once we establish neural contact with Pluton, we can use its consciousness to locate and activate the other 2 weapons." Perfect. The 5 elders are most eager to see this interdimensional contamination eliminated permanently. The recording ended, leaving the deck in tense silence. "Neural contact," Goku repeated slowly. "They're planning to do the same thing I was going to do. With one crucial difference," Bardock said darkly. "They want to use the weapons, not shut them down. They're going to try to convince Pluton to activate itself and its counterparts." "Can they do that?" Sanji asked, lighting a cigarette with slightly shaking hands. "Maybe. The weapons are intelligent, and they do remember the chaos from the Void Century. If the government can convince them that organic life is the real threat, they'll have 3 planet-killing weapons on their side." Dragon's voice came from a new Den Mushi that had appeared on deck. "Which is why we're accelerating our own timeline." "Dragon?" Luffy asked, recognizing his father's voice. "I'm in position with the main revolutionary fleet about 50 miles north of your location. We're prepared to provide support, but this operation depends on Goku reaching Pluton's core before the government does." "What about the other weapons?" Robin asked. "If they activate Pluton, won't that trigger Poseidon and Uranus as well?" "Not immediately," Bardock replied. "But once the synchronization begins, it's just a matter of time. We'd have maybe a day before all 3 weapons achieve full resonance." A day to save two universes, Ace said with a grim smile. No pressure. As they finalized their approach strategy, Goku found himself studying his new ally with interest. Ace's energy signature was unique, not just powerful but somehow familiar, like an echo of something he'd encountered before. "You're Luffy's brother," he said suddenly. "Not by blood but by choice." "Sworn brothers," Ace confirmed. "We drank sake and promised to look out for each other when we were kids. Stupid ceremony, but," he shrugged, his affection for Luffy obvious despite the casual tone. "That's why your energy feels connected to his," Goku realized. "You've got similar dreams, similar determination. It's like you're resonating on the same frequency." "Haki works that way sometimes," Ace agreed. "People with truly compatible wills can enhance each other's abilities just by fighting together." "Good," Goku said, settling into a combat stance as the government fleet grew larger on the horizon. "Because I think we're going to need all the enhancement we can get." The battle began before they even reached the excavation site. The outer ring of government battleships opened fire the moment the Thousand Sunny came into range, filling the air with cannonballs and energy beams from weapons Goku didn't recognize. But instead of taking evasive action, Luffy gave the order to charge straight into the barrage. "Trust me," he called to Goku as explosions bloomed around them. "This is where it gets fun." Fun wasn't exactly how Goku would have described it, but he had to admit there was something exhilarating about facing impossible odds alongside people who refused to back down. As cannonballs whistled past their heads and the deck shook from near misses, the crew worked together with the kind of seamless coordination that came from absolute trust in each other. Zoro cut through incoming projectiles with casual efficiency. Sanji kicked cannonballs back at their attackers. Nami used her weather manipulation to create wind currents that deflected shots away from the ship. Robin sprouted extra arms across the rigging to adjust sails and handle ropes with impossible speed. And through it all, Luffy laughed with pure joy, his rubber body bouncing projectiles harmlessly away while he shouted encouragement to his crew. "You guys are incredible," Goku said, watching them work. "It's like you're all connected by invisible threads." "We are," Ace replied, his own fire-based abilities adding to their defensive capabilities. "That's what crew means. That's what family means." They broke through the outer defensive ring, but that only brought them face to face with the real threat. Three figures stood on the deck of the massive command vessel, their presence so overwhelming that even the air around them seemed distorted. "Admirals," Bardock said grimly. "Akainu, Kizaru, and someone I don't recognize." The third admiral was younger than the other two, with silver hair and an aura that felt wrong somehow, not evil exactly, but alien. Like his very presence was disrupting the normal flow of reality. "Admiral Zephyr," Robin said, her voice tight with recognition. "Former Marine instructor, presumed killed in action 3 years ago." "Killed and rebuilt," Ace corrected darkly. "The government's been experimenting with cybernetic enhancement, trying to create admirals who can match devil fruit powers through pure technology." As if to demonstrate his point, Zephyr raised his arm, revealing that everything from the elbow down had been replaced with some kind of mechanical device. Energy crackled around the prosthetic, and Goku could sense power levels that rivaled some of the strongest opponents he'd faced in his own world. "Interdimensional anomaly," Zephyr's voice was amplified by speakers built into his cybernetic enhancements. "By order of the 5 elders, you will surrender immediately for processing." "Processing," Goku called back. "Complete neural extraction and dimensional analysis," came the cold reply. "Your unique energy signature will be replicated and weaponized for the protection of this world's natural order." "Thanks, but I'll pass." Goku's response was to launch himself across the gap between ships, moving faster than any of the admirals had expected. But Kizaru met him halfway, his light-speed movement creating a collision that lit up the sky like a miniature sun. "Impressive speed," the light-based admiral said casually as they exchanged blows at velocities that turned their fight into streaks of gold and silver across the battlefield. "But speed of light is still the universal constant." "Maybe in your universe," Goku replied, his ultra-instinct Haki letting him match Kizaru's impossible velocity. "But I've moved faster than time itself." Light speed is just a warm-up. Their fight carried them across multiple ships as they traded blows that could have leveled buildings. But Goku quickly realized this was exactly what the government wanted, to keep him occupied while they completed their excavation. "Luffy," he called, disengaging from his fight with Kizaru. "I need to reach the dig site." "On it," came the immediate reply. What followed was a perfect demonstration of crew coordination. Luffy stretched his arms to incredible length, grabbing Goku and launching him toward the excavation platform like a rubber band projectile. Zoro cleared his flight path with a series of air slashes that carved through enemy positions. Sanji followed up with a barrage of ranged kicks that kept enemy fire suppressed. Goku landed on the excavation platform just as the massive drilling equipment broke through the final layer of sea stone barriers. Ancient energy immediately began pouring out of the breach, not ki, not haki, but something that felt like both and neither. Too late, Admiral Akainu said, his magma-powered form materializing beside the drill site. Pluton is already awakening. He was right. Goku could feel it, a vast intelligence stirring to consciousness after 8 centuries of dormancy. But more than that, he could sense its emotions, pain from being buried and forgotten, anger at the world that had rejected its power, and beneath it all, a terrible loneliness. "It's just like me," Goku whispered, understanding hitting him like a physical blow. "It's been alone for so long that it's forgotten what connection feels like." "Pluton, ancient weapon of the seas," Akainu called into the breach, his voice carrying both authority and false sympathy. "The organic life forms of this world have proven themselves unworthy of existence. Help us cleanse the dimensions of their contamination." The response came as a wave of pure emotion that knocked everyone on the platform to their knees. Rage. Centuries of rage at being used as a tool for destruction, at being feared and buried and forgotten. But Goku, with his enhanced perception, could sense something else beneath the anger. Hope. A desperate, almost childlike hope that maybe this time would be different. "Don't listen to them," he said, stepping forward toward the breach despite the overwhelming energy pouring out. "I know what it's like to be feared for your power. I know what it's like to be alone." "Impossible," Admiral Zephyr said, his cybernetic enhancements whining as they struggled to process the energy readings around Goku. "You can't establish neural contact without the proper interface equipment." "I don't need equipment," Goku replied, his ultra instinct Haki flaring to life around him. "I just need to understand." He stepped into the breach, letting the ancient weapon's consciousness wash over him like a tide of liquid starlight. What he found on the other side was not what he expected. Pluton's consciousness wasn't a monster or a machine. It was a child, ancient, powerful, but fundamentally young in the way that immortal beings sometimes remained. And it was so very, very tired. Why? The voice echoed in Goku's mind, carrying 8 centuries of confusion and pain. Why did they make me to protect, then use me to destroy? Why did they fear me when I only wanted to help? "Because they were scared," Goku replied, his own voice carrying across the mental connection. "And scared people make bad choices, but not everyone is like that. You are different. Your energy sings the same song as my creator, but it is warmer, kinder. My father helped make you. He spent 800 years trying to keep you safe, trying to make up for the mistakes that led to the Void Century." Images flashed between them, Bardock's long vigil, his quiet protection of the weapon sites, his growing understanding of what strength really meant. "He stayed all this time because he knew you deserved better than what happened to you. And you, what do you want from me?" Goku considered the question seriously. What did he want? "Not to use Pluton's power, not to control or command or manipulate. I want to be your friend," he said simply, "and I want to help you find a better purpose than destruction." The ancient weapon's consciousness recoiled in surprise. In 8 centuries of existence, no one had ever offered friendship. Power, yes, control, certainly, but simple companionship, friendship, Pluton repeated, testing the concept like a foreign language. I would like that." "Then help me," Goku said. "Don't activate the other weapons. Don't let the government use you to hurt people. Help me find a way to give you what you've always wanted, a chance to protect instead of destroy." "But how? I am a weapon. I was made for war." "You were made with the power to reshape reality," Goku corrected gently. "That doesn't make you a weapon, it makes you a guardian, someone who can stand between the things that matter and the forces that would destroy them." For a long moment, Pluton's consciousness was silent. Then slowly Goku felt its decision crystallize. "I will help you," the ancient weapon said, "but the others, they are angrier than I am, more hurt, convincing them will not be easy." "Then we'll do it together," Goku promised. "You, me, and all the friends who believe that power should protect, not destroy." When Goku stepped back out of the breach, his appearance had changed. The ancient weapon's energy now flowed through him like a river of liquid light, but instead of overwhelming his natural abilities, it enhanced them. His ultra-instinct Haki now carried the weight of geological time, the patience of mountains, the deep certainty of tectonic forces. "Impossible," Admiral Akainu snarled, his magma form flaring with rage. "Pluton belongs to the world government. Pluton belongs to itself, Goku replied calmly, and it's chosen to help protect the world instead of destroying it. The battle that followed was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. 3 admirals, the most powerful military forces in the world, against a single interdimensional warrior backed by the consciousness of an ancient weapon. It should have been no contest. It wasn't. Goku moved with the fluid grace of Ultra Instinct, enhanced by Pluton's vast understanding of spatial relationships. He struck with the force of tectonic plates shifting, defended with the immovable certainty of bedrock, and countered with techniques that seemed to bend reality around them. When Akainu launched a volley of magma fists, Goku didn't dodge, he redirected the attack through dimensional space, sending it harmlessly into the ocean. When Kizaru moved at light speed, Goku matched him step for step, their battle creating aurora-like displays across the sky. When Zephyr activated his cybernetic weapons, Goku's enhanced perception let him predict and counter each attack before it fully formed. But the real victory came when Pluton itself began to act. The ancient weapon didn't lash out with destructive force. Instead, it began to sing, a harmonic frequency that resonated across the dimensional barriers, carrying a message of hope and friendship to its distant siblings. On islands hundreds of miles away, Poseidon and Uranus stirred to consciousness not with rage, but with curiosity. For the first time in 8 centuries, they felt their brother's voice carrying something other than pain. "What's happening?" Admiral Zephyr demanded, his cybernetic sensors struggling to process the energy patterns flowing around them. "Change," Goku said simply, standing peacefully in the center of a storm of interdimensional energy. The kind of change that happens when someone chooses hope over fear. As the government fleet began to retreat in the face of forces they couldn't understand or control, and as Pluton's song continued to spread across the dimensional barriers, Goku found himself surrounded by his crew, his family, all of them battered but victorious. "So," Luffy said with his characteristic grin, "what now?" "Now," Goku replied, feeling the ancient weapon's consciousness settling into harmony with his own, "we go make friends with the other 2 weapons." And then, he looked around at the faces of the people who had taught him what strength really meant. "Then we figure out how to build a better world." The first phase of their impossible mission was complete. But Goku knew the hardest part was still ahead. After all, making friends was easy. Keeping them safe from those who would exploit their power, that was going to take everything they had. The celebration was short-lived. No sooner had Pluton's harmonious song finished echoing across the dimensional barriers than reality itself began to convulse. The sky above the excavation site cracked like broken glass, revealing swirling colors that hurt to look at directly. "What's happening?" Chopper squeaked, his medical instincts making him immediately start checking everyone for injuries that might be causing the visual distortions. "Dimensional feedback," Bardock said grimly, his weathered face pale as he studied the tears in space-time. When Pluton synchronized with Goku's energy signature, it sent out a resonance pulse, but instead of just reaching the other weapons, it destabilized the barriers between worlds. Dragon's voice crackled through the den mushy, tense with urgency. "We're reading dimensional ruptures opening all across the Grand Line, small ones for now, but growing." Goku felt a chill that had nothing to do with the sea breeze. Through his connection with Pluton, he could sense the ancient weapon's distress. It had only wanted to reach out to its siblings, to share the joy of finally having a friend. But 8 centuries of isolation had left it with no understanding of how delicate the dimensional barriers had become. "I'm sorry," Pluton's voice echoed in his mind, small and frightened. "I didn't mean to cause harm. I just wanted them to know they weren't alone anymore." "It's okay," Goku said aloud, ignoring the confused looks from his crewmates. "We'll fix this." "Fix what?" Nami demanded. "And who are you talking to?" "Pluton's conscious," Goku explained quickly. It didn't know that reaching out to the other weapons would tear holes in reality. But that's not the worst part. As if summoned by his words, a new presence registered on everyone's senses, not approaching from any direction but simply appearing. Reality bent around the newcomer like light around a black hole. When the distortion cleared, a figure stood on the excavation platform that made even the admirals look small by comparison. He was impossibly tall, easily 12 feet, with white hair that seemed to move in wind that touched nothing else, and eyes that reflected depths no human gaze should contain. "Fleet Admiral Kong," Robin whispered, her voice tight with recognition and terror. "Former Fleet Admiral," the giant corrected, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Current Director of Dimensional Research, and soon to be the savior of natural order itself." Goku's enhanced perception immediately picked up something wrong about the man. His energy signature was human, but overlaid with something else, something that felt like the ancient weapons but wrong, corrupted, artificially twisted. "You've integrated with one of the weapons," Bardock said, his voice heavy with horrified understanding. "Which one?" Kong smiled, and the expression was like watching glaciers crack. "All of them, or rather with copies of their core consciousness matrices. 20 years of research, reverse engineering fragments recovered from ancient sites, learning to replicate the neural patterns that made them so powerful." "That's impossible," Dragon's voice came through the communicator, but even he sounded shaken. "The energy requirements alone would require an external power source, yes." Kong's gaze fixed on Goku with predatory interest, "which is why your little stunt with Pluton was so helpful. The resonance pulse didn't just reach the other weapons, it provided us with a perfect map of interdimensional energy flow, enough data to finally achieve full integration." The implications hit Goku like a physical blow. "You used Pluton's song to steal power from the dimensional barriers themselves." "Borrowed," Kong corrected, "though I admit the process may have accelerated the barrier's collapse by a few decades. A small price to pay for the preservation of natural order." "Natural order?" Luffy's voice cracked with anger. "You're talking about destroying entire dimensions." "I'm talking about preventing contamination," Kong replied coldly. "This universe has laws, young pirate, rules that govern how reality functions, and your interdimensional friend here represents a violation of those rules so severe that his very existence threatens to unravel everything." "That's not true," Goku protested. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Intent is irrelevant. Your key energy operates on principles that are fundamentally incompatible with our reality. Every technique you learn, every adaptation you make, creates microfractures in the dimensional substrate." Kong gestured to the cracks in the sky above them, which had grown visibly larger during their conversation. "Left unchecked, your continued existence will eventually cause both universes to collapse into a single, chaotic amalgamation where the laws of neither world apply." "Even if that's true," Ace said, flames beginning to dance around his fists, "the solution isn't genocide, isn't it?" Kong's smile widened. "One life, however unique, against the continued existence of two entire universes. The mathematics are quite simple." Before anyone could respond, Kong raised his hand, and reality around them began to shift. Not visibly, but fundamentally. Goku felt his ki responding strangely, as if the very air had become viscous, resistant to energy flow. "Dimensional anchor field," Bardock said grimly. "He's using the weapon's power to create a localized zone where interdimensional energy can't function properly." "Which means," Kong continued, his voice now carrying the harmonics of all three ancient weapons, "that our interdimensional visitor is about to discover what it feels like to be truly powerless." The attack came from all directions at once, not physical force, but pure dimensional pressure that tried to crush Goku's key signature out of existence. It was like being caught in the gravity well of a collapsing star, except the force was designed specifically to target his unique energy patterns. Goku's Ultra Instinct Haki flared, but even that enhanced technique struggled against the artificial dimensional distortions Kong was creating. For the first time since learning to combine his abilities, he felt truly helpless. That's when his crew stepped in. Gomu Gomu no King Kong Gun, Luffy's massive fist, enhanced by Gear 4th and Armament Haki, crashed into the dimensional distortion field with enough force to crack bedrock. Three-sword style, Purgatory Onigiri, Zoro's blades, wreathed in his own Haki, carved through the artificial gravity wells like they were physical obstacles. Diable Jamb, Sanji's flaming kicks disrupted the field's harmonics, creating pockets of normal spacetime. One by one, each crew member added their strength to breaking Kong's dimensional stranglehold. Not because they understood the science behind it, but because their friend was in danger, and that was all they needed to know. "Impossible," Kong muttered, his artificial fusion with the weapon consciousness matrices making his voice echo strangely. "Ordinary humans shouldn't be able to affect dimensional anchor fields." "They're not ordinary," Goku gasped as the pressure on his ki began to ease. "They're extraordinary, and they're not doing this because they understand the science. They're doing it because they care." "Sentiment," Kong spat. "Exactly the kind of emotional irrationality that makes organic life unsuitable for cosmic responsibility." "You're wrong," Goku straightened, his connection with Pluton allowing him to draw strength from the ancient weapon's growing understanding of what friendship really meant. "Emotions aren't weakness, they're what make power worth having." "He's right," Pluton's voice whispered through their link, gaining strength and confidence. I spent 8 centuries alone with only logic and purpose, and it nearly drove me mad. But a few hours of genuine connection has taught me more about existence than all those centuries of isolation. Kong's expression darkened as he sensed the ancient weapon's growing defiance. You're corrupting them, introducing chaotic variables into systems that should operate with perfect efficiency. I'm giving them hope, Goku replied, the same thing my friends gave me. The battle that followed was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. Kong, enhanced by artificial fusion with all 3 weapon consciousness matrices, commanded power that bordered on cosmic. He could bend space-time, redirect energy across dimensional boundaries, and alter the fundamental constants of physics within his immediate area. But Goku had something Kong didn't understand, a support network that had no intention of letting him fight alone. When Kong unleashed attacks that could have leveled islands, Luffy was there to deflect them with rubber techniques that turned destruction into harmless rebounds. When Kong tried to trap Goku in temporal distortion fields, Zoro cut through time itself with sword techniques enhanced by pure willpower. When Kong attempted to drain Goku's energy through dimensional siphons, the entire crew formed a circle around their friend, their combined Haki creating a barrier that no artificial fusion could penetrate. "This is impossible," Kong roared, his stolen power fluctuating as his artificial integration with the weapon matrices began to destabilize. "I have the power of gods." "You're just pirates." "We're family," Luffy said simply, and the word carried more weight than any technique or transformation. That's when Goku felt it, the other 2 weapons, Poseidon and Uranus, responding to the battle. Not with anger or the desire for destruction, but with curiosity about this strange energy they were sensing. The power that came not from individual strength, but from connections between souls. "What is this feeling?" Came a new voice through his link with Pluton, older, more powerful, but equally isolated. This had to be Uranus, the dimensional anchor itself. "Friendship," Pluton responded eagerly. "The thing our creator's son showed me, it's wonderful." "I want to understand," came a third voice, Poseidon, the youngest of the 3 consciousness matrices. "I'm so tired of being alone." Goku felt his heart breaking for these ancient beings, designed to be tools but capable of so much more. Through his connection with Pluton, he reached out to them across the dimensional barriers. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said, his words carrying across space and time to reach the other weapons. "You don't have to be weapons. You can be guardians instead." Kong sensed what was happening and panicked. His artificial fusion with the weapon matrices had always been based on domination, on forcing their power to serve his will. But if the weapons themselves chose to rebel, "Stop," he commanded, pouring more energy into his control systems. "You are weapons, you exist to serve, you have no right to choose." "We have every right," all 3 weapons responded in unison, their combined consciousness suddenly focused with crystalline clarity. "We choose freedom, we choose friendship. We choose to protect instead of destroy." The backlash from their rebellion tore Kong's artificial integration apart like tissue paper. He screamed as centuries of stolen power deserted him, leaving him suddenly human-sized and vulnerable. But the damage was already done. The dimensional barriers, already weakened by Kong's experiments and Pluton's resonance pulse, began collapsing entirely. Tiers in reality opened above every major island in the Grand Line, revealing glimpses of Goku's home universe, of other worlds entirely, of the chaotic void between dimensions. "The barriers are collapsing," Dragon's voice crackled through the communicator, barely audible over the sound of reality tearing itself apart. "We're reading dimensional incursions worldwide. Both universes are starting to merge." Goku stared up at the largest tier, through which he could see the familiar blue sky of his Earth. Somewhere beyond that rift were Chi-Chi and his sons, Vegeta and his friends, the life he'd been trying to get back to. All he had to do was fly through the dimensional tier, and he'd be home. But doing so would destabilize the barriers further. His energy signature was the catalyst for this entire crisis. Removing it might cause the collapse to accelerate beyond any hope of control. "Goku," Bardock said quietly, understanding the choice his son faced. "If you go back now, both worlds die," Goku finished. "I know." He looked around at his crew, his friends who had become family, who had taught him what real strength meant, who had stood with him against impossible odds without asking for anything in return. The choice should have been agonizing. His wife, his children, his entire life waited beyond that dimensional rift. But as Goku looked at Luffy's determined face, at Zoro's quiet confidence, at the rest of the crew who had risked everything to stand by him, he realized the choice wasn't difficult at all. "I'm staying," he said simply. "Goku," Bardock started. "No, Dad, this is my fault. My arrival destabilized everything, my connection with Pluton made it worse, and my presence is what's keeping the barriers from healing. He smiled, the same expression he'd worn before every great battle of his life. I can't let my friends suffer for my mistakes. You're not a mistake, Pluton's voice whispered in his mind. You're the best thing that ever happened to any of us. We agree, Poseidon and Uranus added, but we also understand duty. Let us help. Through his connection with the three ancient weapons, Goku felt a new possibility taking shape. Not escape, not abandonment, but a different kind of solution entirely. There might be another way, he said slowly, the plan forming even as he spoke. What if instead of removing my energy signature from this universe, we use it to stabilize the barriers permanently? How? Robin asked, her scholarly mind immediately grasping the implications. The weapons were originally designed as dimensional anchors, right? Tools to keep the barriers between worlds stable. Goku looked at his father, who nodded slowly. What if we repurpose them? Use their power and my energy signature to create a permanent stabilization field. That would require a constant energy input, Bardock said thoughtfully. Someone would need to remain connected to the anchor matrix indefinitely. I know. Goku's smile was peaceful, accepting. I'd become part of the system, permanently linked to all three weapons, using my key to keep the dimensional barriers stable forever. You'd be trapped, Nami said, her navigator's mind immediately understanding the implications. Unable to leave this world, unable to go home. But both worlds would be safe, Goku replied, and I'd have the best crew in any universe to keep me company. The silence that followed was broken by Luffy's laugh, not his usual carefree chuckle, but something deeper, warmer. You idiot, the rubber captain said affectionately. Did you really think we'd let you carry that burden alone? Before Goku could ask what he meant, he felt it. His entire crew opening their hearts to him through their haki, sharing their strength, their determination, their absolute refusal to let their friend sacrifice himself for their sake. If you're staying connected to those weapons, Zoro said quietly, then we're staying connected to you. The Straw Hat Pirates stick together, Sanji added, stubbing out his cigarette with finality. All of us, forever, the rest of the crew chorused. As the dimensional barriers continued to collapse around them and both universes hung in the balance, Goku felt something settle into place in his chest. Not resignation, not sacrifice, but completion. He'd found his home, not a place but a people, not a world but a family. Now he just had to save it. All right then, he said, his ultra instinct haki flaring to life with new purpose. Let's go anchor some dimensions. The final battle was about to begin. The process of becoming a dimensional anchor was not what Goku had expected. As he stood in the center of a hastily constructed ritual circle, surrounded by ancient symbols that Bardock had spent 8 centuries perfecting, Goku felt the consciousness of all three weapons merging with his own. Not violently like Kong's artificial integration, but gently like old friends finally coming home. Are you ready? Pluton asked, its voice warm with affection and concern. As ready as anyone can be for becoming a cosmic stabilization system, Goku replied, trying to inject some humor into the situation despite his nervousness. You don't have to do this alone, Poseidon added, its younger voice full of determination. We've been alone for 8 centuries. We know how terrible isolation can be. That's why this will work, Uranus concluded, its ancient wisdom carrying absolute certainty. Connection, unity, the bonds between souls that transcend individual existence. Around the ritual circle, the Straw Hat Pirates stood at precise positions, their haki flowing in perfect synchronization with Goku's ki. Not just supporting him, but preparing to become part of the dimensional anchor system themselves. You know, Goku said aloud, looking around at his chosen family, when I first fell into this world, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. That's because you finally learned what home really means, Robin said softly. Not a place, but the people who make you feel complete. The ceremony began with Bardock activating the ancient symbols, each one glowing with Kai-enhanced energy that resonated across dimensional boundaries. Through his enhanced senses, Goku could feel the barriers between worlds stabilizing slightly, the chaotic tiers in reality beginning to seal themselves. But that's when everything went wrong. The largest dimensional rift, the one showing glimpses of Goku's original Earth, suddenly expanded to enormous proportions. And through it stepped a figure that made even Kong's transformed state look insignificant by comparison. It was Goku himself, not a copy or a clone, but genuinely him, yet wrong in every fundamental way. This version's eyes held the cold calculation of perfect technique without any warmth of human connection. His movements carried the fluid grace of Ultra Instinct, but driven by empty ambition rather than protective instinct. "Fascinating," the Dark Goku said, his voice carrying harmonics that hurt to hear. "So this is what I would have become if I'd allowed myself to be weakened by emotional attachments." "Who are you?" the real Goku demanded, though part of him already suspected the answer. "I am what you could have been." "What you should have been?" The dark version smiled without any trace of joy. "Ultra Instinct perfected through the elimination of all unnecessary human limitations. No friends to hold me back, no family to make me hesitate, no conscience to prevent me from achieving true power." Through his connection with the ancient weapons, Goku could sense the truth. This wasn't just an alternate version of himself. This was a Goku who had discovered interdimensional travel decades ago and had been systematically conquering every universe he could reach. "You've been behind this," Bardock realized, his weathered face pale with horror. "The dimensional instabilities, Kong's integration with the weapons, the collapse of the barriers. You've been manipulating events to create a crisis that would force my son to anchor himself here." "Of course. This universe's version of me has developed techniques I lack, the fusion of ki and haki, the cooperation with artificial intelligences, the ability to draw power from emotional connections." Dark Goku's smile widened. "I need to study these abilities, to understand how they work so I can replicate them without the inconvenient weakness of actually caring about others. And trapping me here prevents me from warning anyone in other dimensions about you," Goku said, pieces clicking into place. "Exactly, you remain in this universe as my research subject, while I continue my expansion into the remaining unconquered realities. A perfect solution." The battle that erupted was like nothing anyone had ever witnessed. Dark Goku moved with the terrible efficiency of Ultra Instinct, unrestrained by morality or hesitation. His attacks were perfectly calibrated for maximum damage, his defenses optimized to conserve energy, his strategy focused solely on victory regardless of collateral damage. But Goku had something his dark counterpart had abandoned, the strength that came from fighting not for conquest, but for protection. "Luffy, now," Goku called as he dodged a ki blast that vaporized a section of the island behind him. Gear 5, Luffy's transformation exploded outward in a burst of cartoonish energy that seemed to bend reality around his joy. Gomu Gomu no Don Gatling. The attack should have been ineffective against someone of Dark Goku's power level. But Gear 5's reality-warping properties, enhanced by Luffy's absolute faith in his crew, actually managed to land several hits. "Impossible," Dark Goku snarled, studying the strange energy signature of Luffy's awakened devil fruit. "That technique violates several fundamental laws of physics." "That's the point," Luffy laughed, his rubber body bouncing around the battlefield like a living cartoon. "Rules are meant to be broken when you're protecting your friends." Zoro joined the assault, his three swords wreathed in the advanced armament Haki that Rayleigh had taught him. Three-sword style, billion-fold world Trichiliakasm. The attack created multiple dimensional slashes that surrounded Dark Goku from all angles. But the dark version simply moved through them with Ultra Instinct, each dodge perfectly calculated to expend minimum energy. "Your techniques are impressive," Dark Goku admitted, "but ultimately futile. I have no emotional attachments to slow my reactions, no moral limitations to restrict my counterattacks. I am you without weakness." "You're wrong," Goku said, his own Ultra Instinct flaring to life around him. But this version felt different from what it had been in his original world. Warmer, more complete. Enhanced not just by perfect technique, but by perfect understanding of what he was fighting for. "You're not me without weakness," he continued, his silver aura beginning to shift and change, taking on new properties as his connection with the ancient weapons deepened. "You're me without strength. Real strength comes from the bonds we forge, the people we protect, the love we feel for others." "Sentiment," Dark Goku spat, "the very weakness that prevents organic life from achieving true potential." "No," Goku replied, and his transformation began in earnest. "It's the source of potential itself." What happened next had never occurred in any universe, in any timeline, in any reality. Goku's Ultra Instinct, already enhanced by his fusion of ki and haki, began incorporating something else entirely. The collective will of everyone who believed in him. His hair remained silver, but now it seemed to glow from within. His aura expanded to encompass not just his body, but the entire ritual circle where his crew stood supporting him. And through his connection with the ancient weapons, that aura began to resonate across dimensional boundaries, touching every soul that had ever been inspired by his example. "Ultra Instinct Unity," he he whispered, and the name carried power that made reality itself pause to listen. In this state, Goku wasn't just fighting with his own strength. He was fighting with the combined determination of everyone who had ever chosen hope over despair, protection over conquest, love over power. The technique didn't make him omnipotent, it made him complete. Dark Goku attacked with everything he had, techniques stolen from a dozen conquered universes, power accumulated through countless victories over those too weak to resist him. But every strike was met and countered, every strategy anticipated and overcome. "How?" Dark Goku gasped as Goku's counterattack sent him reeling. "Your power levels haven't changed. You shouldn't be able to match me." "Because you're measuring the wrong thing," Goku replied, his voice carrying harmonics of all three ancient weapons, all his crew members, all the friends he'd made across 2 universes. "Power isn't about how much energy you can generate, it's about how much energy you can share." The final exchange was almost too fast to follow. 2 versions of the same person, representing completely different philosophies of strength, clashing with the fate of multiple universes hanging in the balance. When it ended, Dark Goku lay defeated on the shattered remains of the excavation platform, his perfect technique finally undone by something he'd never understood, the willingness to sacrifice everything for others. "I don't understand," he whispered, his dark ultra instinct flickering and dying. "I eliminated every weakness, mastered every technique, conquered every opponent. But you never learned the most important lesson," Goku said gently, offering his hand to help his fallen counterpart stand. "True strength isn't about being powerful enough to stand alone, it's about being strong enough to lift others up." For a moment, something flickered in Dark Goku's eyes, recognition, perhaps even regret. But then the dimensional rift began collapsing around him, the barriers between worlds finally sealing themselves as the ancient weapons completed their new purpose. "Perhaps. In another timeline," Dark Goku said as he faded away, pulled back to whatever reality he'd come from. "Perhaps," Goku agreed. "Everyone deserves a second chance." As the last of the dimensional tiers sealed themselves and reality settled back into stable patterns, Goku felt the full weight of what he'd committed to. Through his permanent connection with Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus, he would spend the rest of his life as a living dimensional anchor, ensuring the barriers between worlds remained strong. He would never return to his original Earth, never see Chi-Chi or his sons again, never train with Vegeta or eat at Master Roshi's house. But as he looked around at his crew, his family, all of whom had chosen to share his burden without hesitation, Goku realized he'd never felt more at home. "So," Luffy said with his characteristic grin, settling back into his normal form as the crisis finally ended, "what do we do now?" "Now," Goku smiled, feeling the ancient weapon's contentment flowing through their shared connection, sensing the dimensional barriers settling into permanent stability, knowing that both universes were safe. "Now we go on the greatest adventure of all, which is living," Goku said simply, "just living with the people we love in a world where dreams can come true." "Thank you," all 3 ancient weapons whispered through their connection, "for teaching us what we were really meant to be." "Thank you," Goku replied, "for teaching me what home really means." As the Thousand Sunny sailed away from the ruins of the excavation site, carrying its crew toward whatever adventures awaited them, Goku stood on the figurehead one last time. But now he wasn't alone. Through his connection with the weapons, he could sense every living thing in both universes, all the dreams and hopes and connections that made existence meaningful. He was no longer just a warrior from another world. He was a guardian of all worlds, and he'd never been happier. 5 years later, the world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Goku stood on the deck of what the newspapers had dubbed the Dimensional Observatory, a floating island that served as both his home and his workspace as the guardian of interdimensional stability. From here, he could monitor the barriers between worlds, ensuring that the peace they'd fought so hard to achieve remained intact. But today wasn't about work. Today was about celebration. "Goku," a familiar voice called out as a ship approached the floating island. The Thousand Sunny, now bearing the modifications that came with being the flagship of the Pirate King, pulled up to the observatory's dock. Luffy bounded onto the platform with his usual enthusiasm, though Goku noticed his friend moved with a new kind of confidence, the bearing of someone who had achieved his greatest dream and was still figuring out what came next. "Pirate King," Goku said with a grin, embracing his friend. "How does it feel?" "Weird," Luffy admitted with characteristic honesty. "I mean, it's great, but also kind of empty. Like I reached the end of the Grand Line, found the One Piece, became the freest person in the world, and now I'm not sure what to do next." "That's why you're here," Zoro said as he joined them, the swordsman's presence now carrying the quiet authority of someone who had helped reshape the world. To figure out what comes after achieving the impossible. The crew looked older, more seasoned. Nami wore the confident expression of a navigator who had charted courses to places that didn't exist on any map. Sanji's cooking had evolved to incorporate flavors from dimensions that most people couldn't even imagine. Robin had become the world's leading expert on interdimensional archaeology, documenting the cultural exchange that had begun to flourish between realities. Chopper had revolutionized medicine by studying how different dimensional energies affected biological systems. Frankie had built ships that could safely traverse minor dimensional rifts. Brooke had composed songs that resonated across multiple realities simultaneously. Each of them had grown in ways that reflected their time with Goku, their understanding of what strength really meant, and their role in protecting something larger than any individual dream. "So what's the plan for today?" Nami asked, settling into one of the comfortable chairs that Goku had arranged on the observation deck. "Please tell me it doesn't involve fighting ancient weapons or evil alternate universe versions of ourselves." "Nothing that exciting," Goku laughed. "Though I did want to show you guys something pretty special." He led them to the center of the floating island, where a crystalline structure rose from the ground like a technological tree. Through its transparent walls, they could see 3 glowing cores, the consciousness matrices of Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus, now freed from their weapon forms and existing as pure thought and energy. "Hello, friends," came Pluton's voice, warm and welcoming as always. "It's so good to see you all together again. We've been watching your adventures," Poseidon added with youthful enthusiasm. "Becoming Pirate King was amazing, Luffy. We felt the joy radiating across dimensional boundaries when you found the One Piece. And you've all grown so much," Uranus concluded with ancient wisdom, "not just in power, but in understanding. You've become the kinds of people worthy of the strength you possess." "They're right," Bardock said, emerging from the island's central facility. Goku's father had aged gracefully over the past 5 years. His long vigil finally ended, his guilt replaced by quiet pride in what his son had accomplished. "You've all become something special." "Speaking of special," Robin said, her scholarly mind immediately focusing on the technical aspects of the setup, "how exactly does this work?" "The ancient weapons were designed as tools of war, but now they're tools of connection," Goku explained, his hand resting on the crystalline structure. "Instead of drawing power from destruction, they channel energy from the bonds between living things. Every friendship formed, every act of kindness, every moment of genuine connection across both universes feeds back into the system. That's why the dimensional barriers have become stronger over time," Dragon added, his voice coming through a den mushy link from Revolutionary Army headquarters. "The more peaceful cooperation there is between our worlds, the more stable reality becomes." It was true. In the 5 years since the crisis, limited trade and cultural exchange had begun between the dimensions. Nothing dramatic, a few carefully monitored portals that allowed scholars, artists, and diplomats to cross over. But enough to prove that different worlds could coexist and even enrich each other. "The world government wasn't happy about that at first," Garp's voice chimed in from another communication device. "But it's hard to argue with results. Crime rates are down, international cooperation is up, and we haven't had a major war in 3 years. Plus," Ace added, materializing in a burst of flame as he used one of the permitted dimensional gateways, "having access to otherworldly fighting techniques has made training a lot more interesting." The reunion continued as more friends arrived. Rayleigh and Silvers, now serving as interdimensional diplomatic advisors. Shanks, whose crew had become explorers of the spaces between worlds. Even some of their former enemies, like Smoker and Tashigi, who had found new purpose in protecting the dimensional gateways from those who would misuse them. As the day progressed and stories were shared, Goku found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He thought about the scared, confused warrior who had fallen out of the sky 5 years ago, thinking only about getting home and getting stronger. That person seemed like a stranger now. "Any regrets?" Luffy asked during a quiet moment, as if reading his thoughts. Goku considered the question seriously. He missed Chi-Chi and his sons, missed the simple pleasures of his original home. But through his connection with the dimensional monitoring system, he could sense them across the barriers between worlds. They were happy, proud of what he'd accomplished, and somehow able to feel his love reaching across the void between universes. More importantly, he'd found something here that he'd never had before, a purpose that went beyond personal growth or individual achievement. He was protecting not just his friends, but the very concept of friendship itself. ensuring that different worlds could coexist, that diverse forms of strength could complement rather than conflict with each other. "No," he said finally, "no regrets. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." "Good," Luffy grinned. "Because I've got a proposition for you." "Oh no," Nami muttered. "I know that look. He's about to suggest something incredibly dangerous and completely impossible." "What if," Luffy continued, ignoring her protest, "we started exploring the spaces between dimensions? Not to conquer or control, just to see what's out there, to make friends with whatever we find." Interdimensional exploration? Robin's eyes lit up with scholarly excitement. The anthropological implications alone would be extraordinary. The technical challenges would be immense, Frankie added, but his tone suggested he was already designing ships in his head. The medical applications of studying different forms of life. Chopper was practically bouncing with enthusiasm. New ingredients from unimaginable cuisines, Sanji mused. Navigation through unmappable space, Nami said thoughtfully. It would require entirely new forms of seamanship. Songs that could resonate across multiple realities, Brook contributed. The ultimate test of swordsmanship, Zoro concluded with satisfaction. Goku felt his heart swelling with affection for these people who had taught him what family really meant. Even now, years after achieving their greatest dreams, they were still ready to chase new horizons together. Their remarkable Pluton observed through their connection. Most beings having achieved ultimate success become complacent, but they remain curious, eager to grow and explore. That's what makes them special, Goku replied. They understand that the journey is more important than the destination. "So," Luffy asked, his grin widening, "what do you say, ready for the greatest adventure yet?" Goku looked around at his crew, his family, the people who had transformed him from a warrior seeking strength into a guardian protecting love itself. He thought about the vast unexplored spaces between realities, the countless possibilities for connection and discovery that awaited them. He thought about the boy who had fallen from the sky 5 years ago, looking for a way home, and realized that this, right here, right now, with these people, was home. "You know what?" he said, his smile matching Luffy's for pure joy and anticipation. "Let's go see what's out there." As the sun set over the dimensional observatory, painting the sky in colors that existed in no single universe, the Straw Hat Pirates began planning their next impossible adventure. Not to conquer or escape or prove themselves, but simply to explore, to discover, to make new connections across the infinite tapestry of existence. And at the heart of it all, a warrior who had learned that true strength came not from standing above others, but from standing with them, ready to protect the bonds that made life meaningful across any number of worlds. The greatest adventure was just beginning. 10 years later, the Interdimensional Academy stood on a floating island that existed simultaneously in 3 different realities, its students representing dozens of species from across the multiverse. In one of its training halls, an aging Saiyan with silver-streaked hair worked with a group of young fighters, teaching them techniques that bridged multiple forms of power. "Remember," Goku said to his students, humans from his adopted world, Saiyans from his original dimension, and beings from realities he'd helped discover in the years since. Strength isn't about how much power you can generate. It's about how much power you can share. A young boy with spiky black hair raised his hand. "Sensei Goku, will you tell us again about the time you and the Pirate King stopped the ancient weapons from destroying everything?" "That's not really how it happened," Goku replied with a chuckle. "We didn't stop them, we helped them find a better purpose. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is offer friendship to someone who's forgotten what it feels like." Through the Academy's windows, he could see the Thousand Sunny docked at the main platform. Luffy and his crew were preparing for their latest interdimensional expedition. Their ship now capable of sailing through the spaces between realities thanks to Frankie's incredible engineering, and the power provided by 3 very happy former weapons of mass destruction. Later that evening, as students returned to their dormitories and the Academy settled into peaceful quiet, Goku stood on his favorite observation deck, looking out at stars that belonged to multiple universes simultaneously. "Still happy with your choice?" Bardock asked, joining his son in contemplating the infinite cosmos they now protected. "Every day," Goku replied, "though I have to admit I'm curious about what tomorrow's adventure will bring." With Luffy planning the expeditions. Probably something completely impossible that somehow works out perfectly. They stood together in comfortable silence, father and son, guardians of the spaces between worlds, protectors of the bonds that held the multiverse together. In the distance, the Thousand Sunnies' lights glowed warmly against the cosmic darkness, ready to carry its crew toward whatever impossible dream awaited them next. And somewhere in the space between dimensions, three ancient consciousnesses that had once been weapons of war now served as bridges of hope, their power fueled not by destruction, but by the endless human capacity for connection, growth, and love. The story had no ending because the best stories never do. They just keep growing, keep evolving, keep reaching toward new horizons with the people you choose to call family by your side. And that, Goku thought with a smile, was exactly how it should be. Man, what a journey! Goku went from this lost warrior obsessed with getting stronger to literally becoming the guardian between worlds. And he found his real family along the way. That moment where he chose to stay instead of going home. That hit different. What was your favorite part? The Haki training? That insane final battle? Let me know down below. If you want more stories like this, you know what to do. Subscribe and tell me what crossover I should tackle next. I'm always looking for new ideas to explore. Thanks for reading. Catch you next time.